I stared at my credit card statement, my hands trembling as the numbers blurred through my tears. $22,000 gone. The Aspen charges lined up like Soldiers Luxury Resort, private ski lessons, designer boutiques, five-star restaurants. My sister Madison's Instagram stories had documented every extravagant moment while I'd been working overtime to save for a house. When my parents walked through my door that Sunday evening, tanned and laughing about their weekend, I knew everything was about to change forever. The moment my parents settled onto my secondhand couch, still glowing from their mountain getaway, I placed the credit card statement on the coffee table between us. My father, Robert, barely glanced at it before reaching for the TV remote. "Did you have a nice time in Aspen?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. "Oh, Betty, it was wonderful." My mother, Linda, gushed, her new designer sunglasses still perched atop her freshly highlighted hair. "The resort was absolutely gorgeous. Madison had such a fantastic time. You should have seen her on the slopes." I did see her, on Instagram, wearing a $3,000 ski outfit from the boutique charges on my credit card. Robert's hand paused mid-reach. Linda's smile faltered for just a second before returning full force. "Now, sweetie," she began in that condescending tone I knew too well. "Madison really needed this trip. You know how hard the breakup with Tyler hit her. Sometimes a girl just needs to get away and heal." "With $22,000 of my money." "You'll earn it back," Robert said dismissively, finally grabbing the remote. "You've got that fancy financial analyst job. What's a few $1,000s to you?" $22,000, I corrected. Not a few thousand, 22. Linda actually laughed. The sound hit me like ice water. "Oh, Betty, don't be so dramatic. It's not like we robbed you. We're family. Family helps each other." "Family asks before taking enough money to buy a car," I shot back. "We didn't want to bother you while you were working," Robert said, flipping through channels as if we were discussing the weather. "Besides, we had that emergency credit card you gave us. This was an emergency." "A luxury ski vacation is not an emergency, Dad." "Mental health is health," Linda interjected, reaching over to pat my knee. I pulled away. "Your sister was suffering. Would you rather she had done something drastic? You know how sensitive Madison is." I knew exactly how sensitive Madison was. At 25, she'd never held a job for more than 3 months, lived rent-free in our parents' converted garage, and seemed to have a crisis every time life demanded basic responsibility from her. "How did you even know the PIN?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. "You wrote it on that little yellow sticky note," Linda said breezily. "The one you kept in your desk drawer when you lived here. Really, honey, you should be more careful with sensitive information." That sticky note. From 5 years ago. When I'd first gotten the card and made the mistake of trusting my parents enough to give them one for emergencies. Real emergencies. Like medical bills or car breakdowns. Not spa treatments and private ski instructors. "I need you to pay me back," I said firmly. "All of it. Now." Robert finally looked at me, his expression shifting from casual dismissal to annoyance. "Pay you back, Betty. Do you hear yourself? After everything we've done for you, we raised you, put a roof over your head, so food in your belly, and this is how you repay us, by keeping a tally." "You're really being quite selfish," Linda added, her voice dripping with disappointment. "I didn't raise you to be so materialistic." Materialistic. The word came out as a whisper. I thought of my 10-year-old Honda Civic, my thrift store furniture, the generic groceries I bought to save every penny possible for a house down payment. I've been saving for 3 years to buy a home. I work 60-hour weeks. I haven't taken a vacation since college. "And whose fault is that?" Robert asked. "No one told you to be a martyr. Maybe if you loosened up a little, had some fun like your sister, you wouldn't be so bitter about helping family." The room spun slightly. I gripped the arm of my chair, trying to ground myself in reality. This wasn't happening. My parents weren't seriously trying to flip this around on me. "I want my money back," I repeated. "Every penny." Linda stood up, smoothing her designer jeans. "Well, we don't have it. We're not made of money like you apparently think we are. Your father's retirement barely covers our expenses." "Then how did you afford the trip?" "We used your card for the whole thing," she said matter-of-factly. "Like we said, it was an emergency. Madison needed this. Family comes first, Betty. I'm disappointed that we need to explain this to you." They gathered their things, my mother picking up her new Louis Vuitton purse. I wondered if that was on my card, too. "We'll let you calm down," Robert said, heading for the door. "When you're ready to apologize for making such a fuss over nothing, you know where to find us." "Apologize?" I stood up, my legs shaky. "You stole from me." "Stole?" Linda's voice turned sharp. "We're your parents. Parents don't steal from their children. Children help their parents. It's called being a family, Betty. Maybe one day when you have children of your own, you'll understand." The door closed behind them with a soft click. I stood there in my small apartment staring at the credit card statement still lying on the coffee table. $22,000. Nearly a year of savings. Gone. But something else nagged at me. The way they'd been so casual, so prepared with their justifications. The ease with which they'd dismissed my concerns. This felt rehearsed, practiced. I picked up my laptop and logged into my credit card account. I'd been so focused on the Aspen charges, I hadn't looked further back. My fingers trembled as I scrolled through previous statements. Statements I'd been too trusting, too busy to review carefully. There it was. Charge after charge I didn't recognize. Small ones at first, $50 here, $100 there. Restaurants I'd never been to, stores I'd never shopped at, gas stations in neighborhoods I never visited. Then bigger ones, electronics, jewelry, furniture stores. The blood drained from my face as I opened statement after statement going back months, then years. This wasn't the first time, not even close. The Aspen trip wasn't a one-time emergency decision. It was simply the largest, most brazen theft in what appeared to be a long pattern of financial abuse. I reached for my phone with shaking hands. I needed to call my credit card company, then maybe a lawyer, then possibly the police. Because if my calculations were right, my parents hadn't just stolen $22,000. They'd been robbing me blind for years. I spent the entire night going through 3 years of credit card statements, bank records, and financial documents. By dawn, my dining table was covered in papers, highlighters, and sticky notes. My laptop screen showed spreadsheet after spreadsheet of unauthorized charges. The coffee had gone cold hours ago, but I couldn't stop documenting the betrayal laid out in black and white. The pattern was sickeningly clear. It started small, almost testing the waters. A $40 charge at Target, $60 at a gas station, amount small enough that passed me, exhausted from long work days, and trusting my parents completely had overlooked them. Why would I question a grocery store charge I shopped for groceries too? The genius of their theft was in its mundane camouflage. But as I highlighted charge after charge, the escalation became obvious. $40 became $400. Department stores replaced grocery runs. Designer boutiques appeared where discount retailers had been. They'd grown confident in my inattention, bold in their theft. January 2 years ago, $800 at Nordstrom. I remembered that month. I'd eaten ramen for 2 weeks straight because my checking account was mysteriously low. I'd blamed it on Christmas expenses catching up to me. March of last year, $1,500 in car repairs, but not for my reliable Honda. The mechanic shop was in their neighborhood, not mine. I'd been taking public transportation that month because I thought I couldn't afford gas. June 6 months ago, $3,000 at a furniture store. The same week I'd slept on an air mattress because my decade-old bed frame had finally broken and I couldn't afford a new one. Each highlighted charge came with a memory of something I'd sacrificed. Skipped meals, declined invitations, opportunities passed up because I thought I had no money. My best friend, Melissa's destination wedding in Hawaii that I'd tearfully declined. The professional development conference that could have accelerated my career. The dental work I'd postponed until my tooth cracked and needed a root canal. All while my parents were living large on my dime. The fury that had simmered all night suddenly boiled over. I swept half the papers off the table, then immediately dropped to my knees to gather them up. I needed every piece of evidence, every proof of their betrayal. As I reorganized the documents, I found something that made my blood freeze. Charges from Madison's college bookstore dated last semester. But Madison had graduated 2 years ago. She wasn't in school, unless... I grabbed my phone and checked Madison's Instagram. Sure enough, scattered between selfies and party photos were casual mentions of back to school and loving my classes. Madison was in graduate school. Graduate school nobody had told me about. Graduate school I was apparently funding without my knowledge. The calculator app on my phone became my new best friend. I tallied every suspicious charge, every unexplained expense. The number climbed steadily, relentlessly. 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. $47,000. $47,000 stolen over 3 years. I ran to the bathroom and barely made it to the toilet before I threw up. $47,000. That was more than some people made in a year. It was a house down payment. It was freedom. It was my future siphoned away by the 2 people who were supposed to protect me. After rinsing my mouth and splashing cold water on my face, I returned to my evidence. This time, I noticed something else: the timing of the largest charges. They coincided with my bonuses and raises. Every time I'd excitedly shared good news about my career advancement, believing I was making my parents proud, they'd rewarded themselves with my success. My promotion to senior analyst 18 months ago celebrated with a $5,000 shopping spree the next week. My performance bonus last December gone to a luxury cruise I'd seen photos of on my mother's Facebook. So blessed to have such wonderful friends to travel with. She'd captioned, "Friends, not family," because I hadn't been invited. I'd been too broke from mysteriously missing funds to join them, even if I had been. The cruelest part was the gaslighting. Every family dinner where they'd commented on my frugal lifestyle. Every concerned conversation about when I was going to start living a little. Every subtle dig about how I was too focused on money and needed to enjoy life more. "You work too hard, honey," my mother had said just last month. "You should treat yourself sometimes." Treat myself, while she was wearing jewelry purchased with my credit card. I thought about calling my brother James in Seattle. We'd grown distant over the years, him with his tech job and new family, me buried in spreadsheets and overtime. But something held me back. What if he knew? What if he was in on it? Or worse, what if they were doing the same thing to him? A memory surfaced. Last Christmas, James had seemed stressed about money. He'd mentioned something about unexpected expenses supporting our parents through tough times. I'd been confused because Dad had just retired with a full pension and they'd paid off their house years ago. What tough times. Now I wondered if I was funding their lifestyle while they guilt-tripped James into sending them monthly checks, playing both their children against each other. The thought made me sick again. I picked up my phone to check the time and saw multiple missed calls from Madison. 7 texts, too. "Betty, what the hell? Mom says you're freaking out over nothing. It was just a trip stop being such a bitch. You make like $80K, why are you being so cheap? This is why nobody invites you anywhere. Tyler was right about you. Call me back before I block your bitter ass." Tyler was Madison's ex-boyfriend. I'd never even met Tyler. What could he possibly have said about me unless Madison had been complaining about her stingy sister who wouldn't share her wealth, painting me as the villain while spending my money? I opened my banking app to check my savings account. The number made my throat close up. $3,000. That was it. $3,000 from what should have been $50,000. Where had it all gone? Then I remembered. All those times I'd transferred money to cover credit card bills that seemed inexplicably high. Moving funds to checking when I came up short for rent. The constant grinding anxiety of never having enough despite making good money. They hadn't just stolen my money. They'd stolen my peace of mind, my security, my dreams. I thought of my grandmother who'd passed 5 years ago, how she'd always slipped me $20 bills with a wink. "For your future house," she'd whisper. "Every girl needs her own place." She'd be horrified to know her son was stealing from me. Or would she? Had there been signs I'd missed? Actually, now that I thought about it, where was my inheritance? Grandma had always said she was leaving something for each grandchild. But after the funeral, my parents had handled everything. Said the estate was smaller than expected. Funeral costs, they'd explained. Outstanding debts. James Madison and I had each received $1,000 and a piece of her jewelry. $1,000 from a woman who'd lived frugally for 70 years in a paid-off house. I added estate lawyer to my growing list of professionals I needed to contact. The sun was fully up now, streaming through my apartment windows. I'd been awake for 24 hours, but adrenaline kept me wired. I had one more thing to check. I logged into the IRS website and pulled up my tax returns for the past 3 years. Everything looked normal at first. Then I saw it. The dependency section. I was listed as head of household with dependents. But I lived alone. I had no children. Who was I claiming? The answer, when I found it buried in the forms, made me laugh. It was either laugh or scream, and my neighbors didn't deserve the latter. My parents were listed as my dependents. For tax purposes, I was supporting 2 retired adults who owned their house outright, adults who were stealing from me. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. I picked up the phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Sarah Martinez, my friend from college, who'd become a real estate attorney. It was early, but I needed professional advice before I did something I'd regret. Like burn down my parents' house. The house I was apparently supporting them in. The house that, if my suspicions were correct, might hold even more secrets about where my money had really gone. Sarah answered on the 3rd ring, her voice groggy but concerned. "Betty, it's 7 in the morning. Are you okay?" "No," I said, my voice cracking for the first time since this nightmare began. "I'm not okay. I need your help. My parents. I think I need a lawyer, maybe several lawyers." "Come over," she said immediately. "Bring everything. We'll figure this out." As I gathered my evidence into boxes, I noticed my hands had finally stopped shaking. The shock was wearing off, replaced by something harder, colder. Determination. My parents had stolen $47,000 from me. They were about to learn that their financial analyst daughter had inherited something from Grandma after all. Her backbone. 3 days after my discovery, I sat in my apartment waiting for my family to arrive. Sarah had advised me to document everything before confronting them again. I'd taken her advice, making copies of every record recording our phone calls where legal, and creating a comprehensive timeline of the theft. She'd also suggested having witnesses, so I'd finally called James. His reaction had been illuminating. Silence, then a quiet, "How much are you sending them monthly?" When I'd explained I wasn't sending them anything, they were stealing it. He'd gone silent again. Then he'd booked a red-eye flight from Seattle. Now my small living room held an uncomfortable collection of family members. My parents sat on the couch, Linda clutching her purse like a shield, Robert checking his phone every 30 seconds. Madison sprawled in my reading chair, somehow making casual look aggressive. James stood by the window, his face unreadable. "Thank you all for coming." I began standing beside my carefully organized presentation boards. Yes, I'd made boards. Financial analysts know the power of visual aids. "This is ridiculous," Madison interjected, not looking up from her phone. "I have plans tonight." "Cancel them," I said firmly. "This is important." I unveiled the first board showing the total amount stolen, $47,000. The number hung in the air like an accusation. "What is this?" Robert demanded, his face flushing. "Some kind of joke?" "This is a comprehensive breakdown of all unauthorized charges made on my credit cards over the past 3 years. I flipped to the next board showing the escalation pattern. As you can see, what started as small charges grew into significant theft. Theft. Linda's voice pitched high. "How dare you use that word with us? What word would you prefer, Mom? Borrowing without asking permanent loans? Creative financing?" Madison finally looked up, her face scrunched in confusion. Wait, what are you talking about, Mom, Dad? What's she saying? I turned to my sister, seeing genuine bewilderment in her eyes. Madison, who paid for your graduate school. My parents did. They said they'd saved for it. For all of us to get advanced degrees if we wanted. I pulled out the receipts. These charges from your school bookstore hit my credit card every semester, along with your tuition payments. Madison's face went white. No, they said, Mom, you said you'd been planning for this, that you'd invested. We did invest, Linda said quickly, in our children, Betty's being dramatic as usual. We helped with some expenses, and now she's acting like we robbed a bank. You told me Betty refused to help, James said suddenly from his corner. You said she was too selfish to contribute to family expenses. That's why I've been sending you $500 a month. The room erupted. Madison was scrolling frantically through her phone, presumably looking at school payment confirmations. James was demanding answers about where his money went. Our parents were talking over each other, their stories conflicting and contradicting. Enough, I shouted, surprising everyone, including myself. Let me finish my presentation, then everyone can react. I moved to the next board showing the correlation between my promotions and their major purchases. Every time I advanced in my career, the theft increased. Mom, that cruise you took last December paid for with my performance bonus. Dad, your new golf clubs. My overtime pay from the Morrison project. You're twisting everything, Robert protested. We've had some financial struggles. Sometimes we had to borrow from your emergency card. We always intended to pay it back. When, I asked, when were you planning to pay back $47,000? You make good money, Linda said, her tone shifting to wounded. We didn't think you'd miss it. We're living on a fixed income. Do you know how hard it is for retirees? Retirees who own their house outright, I challenged. Retirees who somehow afforded to send Madison to graduate school and take luxury vacations. James stepped forward. I want to see your financial records, he said to our parents. If you've been struggling so much that you needed to steal from Betty and manipulate me into sending money, I want to see proof. We don't have to prove anything to our children, Robert blustered. The disrespect in this room is appalling. We raised you better than this. You raised us to be victims of your fraud, I countered, flipping to the final board. This shows the legal definition of credit card fraud, identity theft, and financial elder abuse in reverse. Yes, that's a real thing. Using your position as parents to manipulate and steal from your adult children. Madison stood up abruptly. I think I'm going to be sick. She ran to my bathroom and we could hear her retching. Look what you've done, Linda accused. Your sister is sensitive. This is too much for her. Too much for her? James laughed bitterly. She got a free graduate degree courtesy of Betty's stolen money. Money you told me Betty was too selfish to share. I've been killing myself to send you support while raising 2 kids because I thought you were struggling. We are struggling, Robert insisted. The cost of living, inflation, medical bills. What medical bills? I pulled out another file. I called your insurance company. You haven't had any major medical expenses. Your premiums are covered by Dad's pension. So where did James's money go? Where did my money go? Madison returned, her face pale and tear-streaked. I found the payment confirmations, she said quietly. The account they came from, it's not yours, is it? She looked at our parents with dawning horror. Sweetheart, you don't understand, Linda started. I understand that you lied to me. You made me think Betty was this horrible, selfish person who wouldn't help her family. I've been telling people my sister is stingy and materialistic. I've been awful to her, and the whole time she was paying for everything. She wasn't paying, Robert said firmly. We were using available resources to invest in your future. That's what parents do. No, James said, his voice deadly quiet. Parents ask. Parents discuss. Parents don't steal and then pit their children against each other. How much of my money went to Madison's school? How much went to your vacations? The room fell silent. Our parents exchanged looks, having an entire conversation without words. Finally, Linda straightened her shoulders. We don't have to sit here and be interrogated by our own children. We've made some financial decisions you don't agree with. That doesn't make us criminals. Actually, it does, I said, which is why I've already filed police reports and contacted the credit card companies. There's an active fraud investigation. You'll probably be contacted soon. The color drained from both their faces. You didn't, Robert whispered. You wouldn't do that to your own parents, Linda said, but uncertainty flickered in her eyes. I did exactly what I should have done the moment I discovered the theft. I protected myself and sought legal recourse, just like you taught me, Dad. Remember, always stand up for yourself, Betty. Don't let anyone push you around. Great advice. This is insane. Robert stood up, pulling Linda with him. We're leaving. When you come to your senses and realize what you're doing to your family, don't come crying to us. Wait, Madison said. I want to know the truth, all of it. How long have you been doing this? What else have you lied about? Linda turned on her youngest daughter, her face contorting. Don't you start too. After everything we've done for you, the sacrifices we've made. What sacrifices? Madison shot back. Living off Betty's money. Taking James's support. What exactly did you sacrifice? Our dignity, apparently. Robert spat. Having to ask our children for help. Do you know how humiliating it is to need money from your kids? You didn't ask, James and I said in unison. We shouldn't have to ask, Linda said. Families should just know, should want to help. But no, we raise 3 selfish children who care more about money than their parents' well-being. Get out, I said quietly. What? Linda looked shocked. Get out of my apartment, I'm done. The police and lawyers can handle everything from here. Betty, please, Madison said. I want to understand. I need to know what else they've lied about. I looked at my sister, seeing her clearly for maybe the first time in years. The spoiled princess persona was cracking, revealing a young woman who'd been manipulated just as much as James and me, just in different ways. Stay if you want, I told her. James. He nodded. I'm staying. We have a lot to figure out. Our parents stood frozen, apparently realizing their divide-and-conquer strategy had finally failed. This is a mistake, Robert said. You're destroying our family over money. No, I said, meeting his eyes steadily. You destroyed our family over money. We're just cleaning up the mess. They left without another word, Linda's heels clicking angrily on my hardwood floors. The door slammed behind them, leaving 3 siblings in uncomfortable silence. Madison spoke first. I'm so sorry, Betty. I had no idea. They told me you were rolling in money and too cheap to share. They said you'd rather see me fail than help out. They told me Betty was heartless, James added, that she'd cut them off financially out of spite. I've been so angry with you for years. I sank into a chair, suddenly exhausted. They played us all, and we let them. What happens now? Madison asked. With the police reports and everything? I don't know, I admitted. But I'm done being their victim, and I'm done keeping their secrets. James pulled out his phone. I just texted my wife. She's been saying something was off about Mom and Dad's money stories. I should have listened. Madison was crying again, but quietly this time. I called you so many names, said such horrible things, and you were paying for my education the whole time. You didn't know, I said, surprised to find I meant it. The anger I'd held toward my sister was evaporating, replaced by pity. She'd been a different kind of victim. So what do we do? James asked. I looked at my evidence boards then, at my siblings. For the first time in years, we were on the same side. First, we get the whole truth, I said. Then we make sure this never happens again, to any of us. Madison wiped her eyes. Betty. That thing Mom said about sacrificing their dignity, do you think they've been doing this to other people too? Like their friends or other family? The thought hadn't occurred to me, but now it seemed obvious. If they'd been this comfortable stealing from their children, who else had they victimized? I think, I said slowly, we need to do some more digging, all of us, together. For the first time since finding that credit card statement, I didn't feel alone. Whatever secrets our parents were hiding, whatever lies they'd told, we'd uncover them. As a family, a real family. The kind that didn't steal from each other and call it love. I couldn't sleep that night. After James and Madison left, promising to dig into their own financial records, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Something was nagging at me, a detail I'd overlooked in the chaos of the family meeting. My mother's comment about living on a fixed income kept replaying, but that made no sense. Dad's pension was generous, they had no mortgage, and now I knew they were getting money from both James and me. Where was it all going? At 3 a.m, I gave up on sleep and opened my laptop. If my parents had taught me anything, it was that financial records don't lie. People do, but numbers don't. I started with public records. Property searches were easier than most people realized, especially with the right databases. I typed in my childhood address, expecting to see my parents' names as the sole owners of the house they'd lived in for 30 years. What appeared on my screen made me sit bolt upright. The house wasn't just in their names, it was in mine too. Betty Ann Richardson added to the deed 7 years ago. I had a vague memory of signing papers around that time. My parents had said it was for tax purposes, that it would help them somehow. I'd been fresh out of college, working my first real job, trusting them completely. I'd signed without reading, without questioning. According to the records, I owned 75% of the house. 75%. My hands trembled as I dug deeper. How was that possible? Why would they give me majority ownership? The answer came in the form of a refinancing document from the same year. They'd pulled out all the equity in the house, nearly $400,000. But the bank had required a co-signer with good credit and stable income. Enter their financially responsible daughter, eager to help her parents with tax purposes. They'd used me to refinance, pulling out massive equity, and somehow the deed had been restructured, giving me majority ownership. Whether by their mistake or the banker's assumption that the young professional was buying out her parents' house, I now owned 3/4 of my childhood home. But where had $400,000 gone? I kept searching my financial analyst skills in overdrive. Property records led to more property records. My parents didn't just own their house. They owned 3 rental properties in the suburbs, all purchased in the last 7 years, all currently rented, generating at least $8,000 a month in income based on comparable rental rates in those neighborhoods. $8,000 a month, plus Dad's pension, plus their theft from James and me. They were bringing in over $15,000 monthly. So why were they crying poverty? I found the answer in Madison's name on one of the investment properties, a duplex titled solely to her purchased 5 years ago. My parents were listed as property managers. I'd bet anything Madison didn't know she owned property, just like she hadn't known about the graduate school funding source. My phone buzzed, James also unable to sleep. "I found something," he texted. "Can I call?" "Please," I responded. His voice was tight with anger when he called. "I've been going through everything. You know those 500 monthly payments I've been sending? They told me it was for their mortgage. Betty, I've sent them $30,000 over 5 years for a mortgage that didn't exist." "James," I said carefully, "are you sitting down?" "Why?" "They own 3 rental properties, and our childhood home, I apparently own 75% of it." The silence stretched so long I thought we'd been disconnected. "What?" he finally said. I explained what I'd found. With each revelation, his breathing grew heavier. "We need a forensic accountant," he said when I finished. "This is bigger than just credit card theft. I don't even know what this is." "I have more," I said, pulling up another document. "Dad's pension. It's not what they told us. He's pulling in $8,000 a month, not $3,000 like they claimed." James laughed, but it was bitter. "Of course he is. God, we're idiots." "We're not idiots. We trusted our parents. That's what children do." "I'm 32 years old, Betty. At what point do I stop being a trusting child and start being a gullible adult?" I didn't have an answer for that. At 28, I was asking myself the same question. "There's something else," I said, remembering Grandma's estate. Do you remember what Mom and Dad said about Grandma's will? That the estate was smaller than expected. Funeral costs ate up most of it. Right. But I just found her obituary online. It mentions she was preceded in death by Grandpa 15 years ago. James' grandpa had life insurance through Boeing, a big policy. Grandma lived simply for 15 years after he died. Where did that insurance money go? You think they stole from Grandma too? I think we need to see that will. We agreed to meet at the courthouse when it opened. Public records were beautiful things when you knew where to look. I spent the remaining hours until dawn creating a comprehensive financial timeline. Every property purchase, every major expense I could track, every lie we'd been told. The picture that emerged was staggering. My parents weren't struggling retirees scraping by on a fixed income. They were property moguls with multiple revenue streams who'd been systematically defrauding their children while building a real estate empire. The courthouse opened at 8. James and I met on the steps, both clutching coffee like lifelines. He looked as exhausted as I felt. "Ready for this?" he asked. "No, you..." "Not even close." We found Grandma's will in the probate records. The legal language was dense, but the basics were clear. She'd left her house to be sold with proceeds split equally among her 3 grandchildren. The house had sold for $450,000. We should have each received $150,000. We'd gotten $1,000. "I'm going to be sick," James said, gripping the counter. I kept reading. There was also mention of a trust Grandpa had set up, money for his grandchildren's education managed by his son Robert until each grandchild turned 25. I was 28. James was 32. Neither of us had heard about any trust. "We need a lawyer," I said. "A really good one." "I know someone," James said. "My company uses her for corporate matters, but she does personal stuff too. She's expensive, but worth it." "I don't care what it costs. I want answers." We made copies of everything, then sat in James's car processing what we'd learned. "The house money," he said suddenly. "The $400,000 they pulled out in the refinance. That's exactly what they would have owed us from Grandma's house sale." The pieces clicked together. They used my credit to access equity equal to what they stole from us, then used that money to buy rental properties. In Madison's name. So when they die, she inherits everything. We get nothing because they already stole our inheritance. Unless, James trailed off thinking, "Betty, you own 75% of their house. What if you forced a sale?" The idea had occurred to me, but hearing James say it made it real. They're our parents. They're criminals who happen to be our parents. There's a difference. My phone rang. Madison. "I can't find any records of owning property," she said without preamble, "but I found tax documents in my email. I've been paying taxes on rental income I've never received. Betty, what's happening?" "Can you meet us?" I gave her the address of a nearby cafe. An hour later, the 3 Richardson siblings sat around a small table, evidence of our parents' crimes spread between us. "So let me get this straight," Madison said, her face pale. "They stole our inheritance from Grandma, used Betty's credit to pull equity from their house, used that money to buy rental properties in my name, have been collecting rent while making me pay the taxes, and this whole time they've been taking money from both Betty and James while telling us all different lies about each other. That's the summary yes, I confirmed." "I'm going to lose everything, aren't I?" Madison asked quietly. "The property's in my name. If they bought them with stolen money..." "We don't know that yet," James said gently. "We need professional help to sort this out." "I'll pay for the lawyer," I said. Madison shook her head. "With what money they've stolen everything from you." "I'll figure it out. I always do." "No," James said firmly. "We split the legal costs 3 ways. We're in this together." Madison was crying again. "I don't have any money. I just found out the graduate degree I thought was a gift was actually paid for by my sister, who I've spent years trash-talking. I live in their garage because I can't afford rent, except apparently I own a rental property I didn't know about. I'm 25 years old and my whole life is a lie. I reached across the table and took her hand. Hey, we're going to figure this out. All of it. Together. How are you so calm? She asked. They stole $47,000 from you. 57,000, I corrected. If you count my share of Grandma's estate, and I'm not calm, I'm furious, but I'm also determined. They're not going to win. What does winning look like? James asked. I thought about it. Justice, recovery of what was stolen, and maybe... I paused, the idea crystallizing. Maybe it looks like me exercising my rights as 75% owner of their house. Madison's eyes widened. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? They've spent years telling everyone I'm selfish and materialistic. Maybe it's time I lived up to their expectations. The nuclear option, James said quietly. Force a partition sale. They'd have to buy you out or sell the house. They can't buy me out. They've spent all their money building their secret empire. A forced sale might be the only option. Good, Madison said, surprising us both. They deserve it. After everything they've done, they deserve to lose that house. We spent the next hour planning our approach. Legal consultation first, then forensic accounting, then decisions about how far we were willing to go to recover what was ours. As we prepared to leave, Madison hugged me tight. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything, for believing them, for the things I said. We were all victims, I told her, just in different ways. Not anymore, James said. Now we're plaintiffs. I laughed despite everything, my brother, the tech executive, already thinking in legal terms. As I drove home, I thought about the conversation I'd have with Sarah, my real estate attorney friend. She'd mentioned something called a partition sale when I'd first told her about the situation. I thought it was too extreme then. Now, with evidence of massive fraud, inheritance theft, and property manipulation, it seemed like the minimum response. My parents had spent years building their house of cards on a foundation of their children's trust and money. They were about to learn what happened when that foundation was yanked away. The house they'd refinanced using my credit, giving me 75% ownership in the process, the one they'd been so confident I'd never know about or act on. I was about to sell it out from under them. After all, they'd raised me to be financially savvy, to maximize investments, to know my rights and use them. Careful what you teach your children. They might just learn. Sarah Martinez's law office occupied the top floor of a downtown high-rise, all-glass walls and modern furniture that screamed success. I'd known Sarah since our freshman year at State, but seeing her here in her element reminded me how far we'd both come from our dorm room study sessions. Betty. She greeted me warmly, then noticed my companions. This must be James and Madison. We'd all come together united in purpose, if still awkward in our newfound alliance. Sarah led us to a conference room where coffee and pastries waited, though none of us had much appetite. I've reviewed the documents you sent. Sarah began, her expression serious. I need to be clear up front, this is one of the most extensive cases of familial financial fraud I've encountered. She spread our evidence across the conference table, organizing it with practiced efficiency. Let's start with the house deed. Betty, you own 75% of your parents' primary residence. This is documented, filed, and completely legal. The question is whether you understood what you were signing at the time. I didn't, I admitted. They said it was for tax purposes. I trusted them. Unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately in this case, your lack of understanding doesn't negate the legal reality. You own that house. More importantly, as majority owner, you have significant rights. Including forcing a sale, James asked. Exactly. It's called a partition action. As the majority owner, Betty can petition the court to force the sale of the property. The other owners, your parents, would have two options: buy out Betty's share at fair market value or agree to sell the property and split the proceeds according to ownership percentages. Madison shifted uncomfortably. How much would that be? Sarah pulled up property comparisons on her laptop. Based on recent sales in that neighborhood, the house is worth approximately $750,000. Betty's 75% share would be $562,500. The number hung in the air like a challenge. More than $500,000, more than 10 times what they'd stolen from me. They can't afford that, I said quietly. They'd have to sell. Most likely, yes. Sarah turned to Madison. Now, about these properties in your name. You said you were unaware of ownership. Madison nodded, her face still pale from days of revelations. I found out 3 days ago. I've apparently been paying taxes on rental income I've never seen. That's tax fraud, Sarah said bluntly. If your parents collected rental income from properties in your name without your knowledge or consent, both they and potentially you could face serious consequences. But I didn't know, Madison protested. Which is why we need to act quickly. We'll need to file amendments to your tax returns, report the fraud to the IRS, and potentially pursue criminal charges against your parents. The fact that you're coming forward voluntarily will help significantly. James leaned forward. What about the inheritance theft, our grandmother's estate, and the trust our grandfather supposedly set up? Sarah's expression darkened. That's more complex. There's a statute of limitations on contesting probate, but fraud can extend those limits. We'd need to petition to reopen the estate based on newly discovered evidence of fraud. It's possible, but it will be a longer process. And expensive, I guessed. Yes, between forensic accounting court fees and legal representation, you're looking at significant upfront costs. However, she paused, choosing her words carefully. Given the clear evidence of fraud and the assets involved, I believe you have an excellent chance of recovery, plus attorney fees and damages. Damages, Madison asked. Punitive damages for the emotional distress, lost opportunities, and deliberate nature of the fraud. Courts don't look kindly on parents who systematically defraud their children. I thought about all those missed opportunities, Melissa's wedding, the conferences, the constant anxiety of never having enough despite earning good money. What's our first step? Several things need to happen simultaneously, Sarah said, pulling out a legal pad. First, Betty needs to decide about the partition action. That's the fastest way to recover significant assets and prevent your parents from leveraging that property further. Do it, I said without hesitation. File the partition action. Sarah nodded, making notes. Second, we need a forensic accountant to trace every dollar. I recommend Marcus Chen from Fitzgerald and Associates. He's excellent with family fraud cases. Chen's not on the forbidden name list, right? Madison asked, attempting humor despite the situation. Different context, I assured her. Professional, not personal. Sarah continued. Third, we need to secure all evidence. Your parents will likely attempt to hide assets or create alternative explanations once they realize the extent of your knowledge. James, can you get copies of all your payment records, Madison? We need every tax document related to those properties. Already working on it, James confirmed. My wife's helping me organize everything. Good. Fourth, criminal charges. This is your decision, but I strongly recommend filing reports with both local police and the FBI. FBI, I squeaked. Isn't that excessive? Wire fraud across state lines, identity. Theft, tax fraud potentially exceeding $100,000. This is exactly their jurisdiction. Plus, federal charges carry more weight and resources for investigation. The reality of what we were doing hit me suddenly. We weren't just confronting our parents anymore. We were potentially sending them to federal prison. I need a minute, I said, standing abruptly. Sarah nodded understandingly. There's a break room down the hall. Take your time. I found myself staring out at the city skyline, coffee growing cold in my hands. 28 years old, and I was orchestrating my parents' downfall. Every ethical guideline said they deserved it. They'd stolen, lied, manipulated, and shown no remorse. But they were still my parents. Madison found me 10 minutes later. Weird, right, sitting in a lawyer's office planning to destroy Mom and Dad. Is that what we're doing, destroying them? She leaned against the window beside me. They destroyed us first, or tried to. Did you know I've been in therapy for 2 years? Anxiety and depression. I thought I was a failure because I couldn't seem to adult properly despite all their help. Turns out I was being gaslit and financially manipulated. I didn't know about the therapy. Why would you? According to them, you didn't care about my struggles. Too busy being successful and selfish. She laughed bitterly. God, Betty, they had me so turned around I actually resented you for earning your success, while you were paying for my education. You couldn't have known. But I should have questioned it. Should have wondered why they always had money for my needs, but were constantly claiming poverty. Should have noticed how they talked about you and James. Divide and conquer, right out of the toxic parent playbook. I agreed. So what do? Let them get away with it because DNA says we should love them unconditionally. I turned to look at my little sister, really seeing her. The party girl persona had evaporated, completely replaced by a young woman grappling with hard truths. We hold them accountable, I decided, whatever that looks like. We returned to the conference room where Sarah and James were discussing timeline strategies. I'm in, I announced. Whatever needs to happen, file the partition action, bring in the forensic accountant, pursue criminal charges. All of it. Me too, Madison added. I'll cooperate fully with the tax situation, turn over the properties, whatever it takes to make this right. James nodded. Unanimous, let's do this. Sarah smiled, the expression sharp with professional satisfaction. Excellent. Now there's one more thing we need to discuss. Your parents will likely hire their own attorney once they're served. They'll probably try to negotiate, manipulate, maybe even attempt to transfer assets. You need to be prepared for escalation. Meaning, I asked. Meaning they'll get desperate. Desperate people do desperate things. I recommend changing all your locks, passwords, security questions. Put alerts on your credit. Maybe even consider temporary relocation if they know where you live. You think they'd get violent? Madison asked, alarmed. Not necessarily physical violence, but financial violence, emotional manipulation, absolutely. They've already proven capable of significant deception. Don't underestimate what they might do when cornered. We spent another 2 hours going through documentation, signing representation agreements, and establishing communication protocols. Sarah would file the partition action within the week. Marcus Chen could start forensic accounting immediately. Criminal reports would be filed after we had the full financial picture. As we prepared to leave, Sarah pulled me aside. Betty, you're the primary victim here, and you have the most power with that property ownership. They're going to come at you hardest. Are you prepared for that? I thought about the years of sacrifice, the stolen opportunities, the lies that had shaped my entire adult life. They trained me to be financially responsible, to know my rights, to maximize my investments. I'm just applying their lessons. Poetic justice. Sarah approved. My favorite kind. Outside the building, the 3 Richardson siblings stood awkwardly unsure how to proceed with our new dynamic. Want to get lunch? Madison offered. I know I've been awful about money, but I can actually pay now that I know I'm not broke. You're not awful about money, I corrected. You were kept deliberately ignorant about money. There's a difference. Lunch sounds good, James agreed. We should probably talk strategy anyway. Sarah's right about them escalating. We found a quiet restaurant nearby and for the first time in years had an honest conversation. No parental manipulation coloring our perceptions of each other. No lies creating false resentments. Just 3 siblings discovering who we really were beneath the fraud. I keep thinking about Grandma, Madison said over her salad. She lived so frugally, always clipping coupons, wearing the same coat for 20 years. And the whole time she was sitting on enough money to transform our lives. She wasn't sitting on it, James corrected. She left it to us. They just stole it. Do you think she knew, I wondered, what they were capable of? Maybe that's why she set up the trust with Grandpa, James suggested, to protect the money. She just didn't count on her son being willing to defraud his own children. My phone buzzed, Sarah already working. Partition action drafted, can file Monday if you're still certain. I showed the message to my siblings. do it, Madison said immediately. They've been living in that house on stolen money, money that should have been ours. Selling it is the least they deserve. Agreed, James added, though we should probably brace for impact once they're served. I typed back my confirmation to Sarah, then looked at my siblings. You know what? I'm glad this happened. They stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Not the theft, I clarified quickly, but this, us, finding our way back to each other. If they hadn't gotten so greedy with that Aspen trip, if that $22,000 hadn't been so flagrantly excessive, I might never have looked closely at my statements. We might have gone our whole lives believing their lies about each other. Silver lining to grand theft, Madison said wryly. That's optimistic. Or maybe it's just justice, James suggested. Their greed finally outweighing their caution. Evil contains the seeds of its own destruction and all that. Philosophy major. Madison and I said in unison, then laughed. It felt good to laugh with my siblings, to recognize our inside jokes still existed beneath years of manufactured distance. You know they'll blame us for destroying the family, I said. The family was already destroyed, James countered. We're just acknowledging it, and maybe building something better. Something honest, Madison added. My phone rang, an unknown number, but something made me answer. Betty. This is Marcus Chen from Fitzgerald and Associates. Sarah Martinez said you needed forensic accounting services urgently. Yes, thank you for calling so quickly. I've reviewed the initial documents Sarah sent. I can start immediately if you're ready. Fair warning, based on what I'm seeing, this rabbit hole likely goes deeper than you know. Deeper than systematic theft of our inheritance, credit fraud, and property manipulation. How much deeper, Anne, I asked. Let's just say your parents have been very busy and very sloppy. Digital footprints are hard to erase when you're moving this much money. Can you come by my office tomorrow? I looked at my siblings who were watching with concern. We'll be there. All three of you, excellent. Bring every financial document you can find. Bank statements, tax returns, investment accounts, even old utility bills. Sometimes the smallest details reveal the biggest frauds. After hanging up, I relayed the conversation. Deeper, Madison said faintly. How is deeper possible? We're about to find out, James said grimly. You realize we've probably only scratched the surface, right? 3 properties we've found. Inheritance theft, credit fraud. What else have they been doing with our identities? The thought was sobering. We'd uncovered so much already, but if Marcus Chen was right, our parents' fraud might extend beyond even our worst assumptions. Whatever it is, I said, we face it together. No more divide and conquer, no more secrets. Together, my siblings agreed. As we left the restaurant, I felt my phone buzz, a text from my mother. We know what you're doing. This is your last chance to stop before you destroy everything. Family should forgive. Call me. I showed it to James and Madison. The manipulation begins, James observed. That didn't take long. Block her, Madison advised. Both of them, at least until this is resolved. I stared at the message at the word forgive. They wanted forgiveness without acknowledgement, without restitution, without change, just blind absolution for systematic theft and manipulation. You're right, I said, blocking both numbers. Sarah warned us they'd escalate. This is just the beginning. Let them escalate, Madison said with newfound steel in her voice. We have the truth and each other. And really good lawyers, James added. As we walked back to our cars, I thought about the partition action that would be filed Monday. My parents were about to learn that their financial analyst daughter had inherited more than they'd realized. Not just Grandma's backbone, but her sense of justice, too. And unlike them, I wasn't afraid to use it. The next 3 weeks passed in a blur of calculated preparation. I'd transformed my dining room into a war room with evidence boxes labeled by year color-coded folders for different types of fraud and a massive timeline taped across one wall. I'd taken Sarah's warnings seriously, installing new locks, a security system, and cameras that backed up to the cloud. Marcus Chen had been right about the rabbit hole going deeper. Our first meeting had revealed a labyrinth of financial manipulation that made our initial discoveries look like pocket change. "Your parents have been running a sophisticated operation," he'd explained, spreading out his preliminary findings. "They've used your Social Security numbers to open 12 additional credit cards, 3 personal loans, and 2 business credit lines." "Business credit lines?" James had asked, stunned. "They registered an LLC called Richardson Property Management 5 years ago, listed all 3 of you as co-owners without your knowledge. They've been using it to funnel rental income, take out loans, and write off personal expenses as business costs." Madison had to excuse herself to vomit again. It was becoming her stress response. Now, 3 weeks later, I sat in my apartment reviewing Marcus's final report. The total damage was staggering, over $300,000 in theft, fraud, and misused funds across all 3 siblings. And that didn't include the property manipulation or inheritance theft. My phone rang. "James, you see the email from Sarah?" he asked without preamble. "About them hiring Richard Dunham, yeah." Dunham was known as a pit bull attorney who specialized in defending wealthy clients accused of financial crimes. The fact that my parents could afford him raised questions about what other assets they might be hiding. "They're scared," James said. "Good. Did you finish recording all the calls?" Since discovering my state allowed one-party consent recording, I documented every interaction. My parents had called repeatedly before I'd blocked them, alternating between threats, tears, and manipulation. Each call had provided more evidence of their guilt. "My favorite was Mom crying about how we're killing Dad with stress," I said, while in the background I could hear him booking tea times at his country club. "The country club they pay for with our money," James added bitterly. A knock at my door made me freeze. I checked the security camera app on my phone. Madison stood outside holding file boxes. "It's just Madison," I told James. "I'll call you back." Madison entered looking frazzled but determined. "I found more," she announced, setting down the boxes. "Went through every piece of paper in that garage apartment. Look at this." She pulled out a folder containing insurance documents, life insurance policies, on all 3 of us, with our parents as beneficiaries. "When did they take these out?" I asked, scanning the documents. "Various times over the last 10 years, each worth $500,000. Betty, they've been paying premiums with our own money to insure our lives for their benefit." The violation felt fresh even after everything else. They'd literally bet on our deaths. "Add it to the pile," I said wearily. "Marcus will want to see these." Madison sat down surveying my war room. "How are you so organized about this? I can barely keep track of what day it is." "Anger is excellent motivation," I admitted. "Plus, this is what I do for a living: analysis, patterns, follow the money." Speaking of patterns, Madison pulled out another document. "I found something weird. Mom's been making regular monthly transfers to an account in the Caymans, $3,000 like clockwork for 8 years. I snatched the paper from her hands. "The Caymans! They have offshore accounts." "Looks like it. The transfers line up with when they started stealing from us." My phone rang again, Sarah this time. "Betty, I need you to know something before you hear it elsewhere. Your parents' attorney has filed an emergency motion to block the partition sale. They're claiming elder abuse and undue influence." "Elder abuse." I laughed sharply. "They're in their 60s, not their 90s, and they're the ones who've been abusing us." "I know. It's a delay tactic, but we need to respond. Can you come in tomorrow, bring your siblings, and any new evidence Madison mentioned she was bringing over?" We found life insurance policies on all of us and evidence of offshore accounts. Sarah's silence spoke volumes. Finally, "Jesus, Betty, your parents are either criminal masterminds or the sloppiest fraudsters I've ever seen. Offshore accounts. That's federal territory for sure." After she hung up, I looked at Madison. "We need James here. Conference call with Marcus, too. This is getting bigger than we thought." 2 hours later, my apartment was full. James and his wife, Claire Madison Sarah, attending virtually, and Marcus Chen in person with his laptop and portable printer. "Let me summarize what we're dealing with," Marcus began. $300,000 in direct theft and fraud. 3 properties purchased with stolen inheritance funds. Approximately $700,000 in real estate assets improperly titled. Offshore accounts containing unknown amounts. Life insurance policies taken out without consent. Tax fraud spanning multiple years. Identity theft. Wire fraud. Money laundering through an LLC. Am I missing anything? Just the complete destruction of family trust, Madison muttered. From a legal standpoint, Sarah said through the laptop screen, we have enough to put them away for decades. The question is how far you want to pursue this. All the way, I said immediately. They've shown no remorse. They're still trying to paint us as the villains. They hired Richard Dunham to fight us. I'm done playing nice. Agreed, James said, Claire squeezing his hand supportively. They made their choice, repeatedly, for years. Madison nodded. I'm tired of being their victim or their unwitting accomplice, whatever it takes to end this. Marcus pulled up a new document. Then here's what I recommend. We compile everything into a comprehensive report for the FBI. Financial crimes of this magnitude, especially with offshore components, will get their attention. Meanwhile, Sarah proceeds with the civil suits, the partition sale recovery of stolen funds and damages. What about the properties in my name? Madison asked. We'll petition to have them transferred to a trust controlled by all 3 siblings, Sarah suggested. Show the court you're not trying to profit from your parents' crimes, just recover what's rightfully yours. I don't want to profit, Madison said firmly. I want justice and my life back. Claire, who'd been quietly observing, finally spoke. Can I ask something? What's your endgame here? Beyond the legal victories, what do you actually want? We all fell silent, considering. I want the truth acknowledged, I said finally. No more lies, no more gaslighting, no more pretending we're the bad guys for demanding basic honesty. I want them to face consequences, James added. Real ones. Not just financial recovery, but actual acknowledgement of what they've done. I want to be free, Madison said softly. Free from their manipulation. Free from the guilt. Free to have relationships with my siblings without their poison. Marcus nodded approvingly. Those are achievable goals. The legal system can't make them apologize sincerely, but it can certainly make them face consequences. What's our timeline? I asked. I'll have the FBI report ready by Monday, Marcus said. Sarah, when's the hearing on their emergency motion? Thursday, which gives us 5 days to prepare our response. I'll need affidavits from all 3 of you detailing the pattern of manipulation and theft. What about the offshore accounts? Madison asked. How do we trace those? The FBI has resources we don't, Marcus explained. Once they're investigating, they can work with international banking authorities. Your parents were sloppy enough to make regular transfers from their U.S. accounts. That creates a paper trail. Speaking of sloppy, I said, pulling out my recorded calls file. Want to hear Mom admitting to using my credit cards without permission. We spent the next hour reviewing recordings. Each call was more damning than the last. My father dismissing the theft as family helping family. My mother crying about how ungrateful we were while simultaneously admitting she'd used our information for loans. Both of them discussing their investments openly, apparently forgetting that investments required actual money, not stolen funds. This is gold, Sarah said. They've essentially confessed to everything, multiple times. Ego, Marcus diagnosed. They've been getting away with this for so long they couldn't imagine consequences. Classic fraudster mistake. Claire's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. James, your mom's calling me. Don't answer, James said immediately. They're trying to find ways around our blocks. Already declined, Claire assured him. But she's left 3 voicemails today. Something about how I need to talk sense into you before you destroy your father's health. Dad's health is fine, Madison said. I drove past the country club yesterday. He was on the golf course. Manipulation tactic, I said. When legal threats don't work, they switch to health scares. Sarah cleared her throat. On that note, you should all be prepared for escalation as Thursday approaches. They know the partition sale is the biggest immediate threat. Losing that house means losing their primary asset and facing reality. What kind of escalation? Madison asked nervously. Showing up at your workplaces, contacting your friends, social media campaigns painting you as ungrateful children, maybe even claims of mental instability or coercion among siblings. They wouldn't, Madison said, then laughed harshly. Who am I kidding? Of course they would. Document everything, Marcus advised. Every contact attempt, every social media post, every flying monkey they send your way. It all becomes evidence of harassment and consciousness of guilt. As the meeting wound down, I felt the weight of what we were undertaking. We weren't just seeking financial justice anymore. We were systematically dismantling our parents' carefully constructed facade of respectability. One more thing, Marcus said as he packed up. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've seen every type of family fraud imaginable. But this, the scope, the duration, the calculated manipulation, this is exceptional. Your parents aren't just opportunistic thieves. They're professional con artists who happen to target their own children. Comforting, Madison said dryly. Actually, it should be, Marcus continued. It means none of this is your fault. You weren't naive or stupid. You were deliberately, systematically targeted by people who used your love and trust as weapons. The fact that you're fighting back now, that takes incredible courage. After everyone left, I stood in my war room looking at the evidence of years of betrayal. Thursday's hearing loomed, but I felt ready. We had truth on our side. We had each other. And we had really, really good documentation. My laptop dinged with an email from Sarah. The subject line read, "Partition sale motion filed. Brace for impact." I smiled grimly. Let them come. Let them rage and manipulate and threaten. We'd been preparing for this moment for 3 weeks. But really, they'd been preparing us for this our whole lives. Every lesson about financial responsibility, every lecture about standing up for ourselves, every reminder to document everything. We'd learned their lessons well, perhaps too well. Now it was time to show them what their students had become. Monday morning arrived with a call that changed everything. I'd just submitted my fraud claims to all the credit card companies backed by Marcus's forensic report and my recorded evidence. The representative from American Express was the first to respond. Ms. Richardson, I'm Detective Williams from our fraud investigation unit. I've reviewed your case file. This is one of the most extensive familial fraud cases we've seen. Can you come to our regional office today? We need to discuss the criminal implications. I agreed, my hands shaking as I ended the call. Criminal implications. The words echoed as I called James and Madison. The American Express office building felt imposing as the three of us walked through security. Detective Williams met us in a conference room that looked more like a police interrogation space than a credit card company meeting room. Thank you for coming. He began spreading out files that looked disturbingly thick. We've been investigating your parents for 6 months. What? I gasped. 6 months? Your case triggered our review, but you're not their only victims. We've identified 17 other cardholders whose accounts show similar patterns. All elderly individuals who trusted Robert and Linda Richardson with financial matters. Madison gripped the table. They've been doing this to other people. Your parents ran a companionship service for seniors 5 years ago. Golden Years Helpers, they called it. They gained access to financial information and have been systematically defrauding their clients ever since. My mind reeled. We'd thought we were dealing with parents who'd stolen from their children. We were actually dealing with career criminals. The Aspen trip was their mistake. Detective Williams continued. 22,000 in 3 days triggered our algorithms. When we investigated, we found the pattern. Then your fraud report connected the dots. 17 others, James repeated numbly. How much in total? Across all victims, approximately $2.3 million. Madison excused herself. We could hear her retching in the hallway bathroom. Detective Williams pulled out a laptop. "We've been working with the FBI, but your evidence is the strongest. You have recordings, documentation, inside knowledge of their methods. We need your cooperation to build an airtight case." "You have it," I said immediately. "Whatever you need." "Good. First, we're reversing all fraudulent charges on your accounts. The full $47,000 will be credited back within 5 business days." Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly cried. All of it. Every penny. When fraud is this clear, we move quickly. But there's more. Your parents used your information to open additional accounts. 12 cards across various banks, 3 personal loans, and 2 business credit lines. He showed me the list. My name attached to debts I'd never known existed. Maxed out cards with luxury retailers, cash advance loans at predatory interest rates, business credit used to fund their property purchases. Total debt in your name is approximately $130,000, Detective Williams said. We're working with the other institutions to clear all of it. You'll be made whole. What about criminal charges? James asked. That's why we need your help. White-collar crime is often hard to prosecute without cooperating witnesses, family members who can testify to patterns of behavior, methods of manipulation, the psychological aspects of the fraud. You want us to testify against our parents, Madison said, having returned looking pale but resolute. Yes, along with the 17 other victims we've identified. But your testimony is crucial because you can speak to their methods over decades, not just isolated incidents. My phone buzzed, Sarah calling. Can I put my attorney on speaker? Please do. Sarah's voice filled the room. Betty, I just got a call from the federal prosecutor's office. They want to meet Thursday after the partition hearing. That would be me, a new voice said. A woman entered the conference room, all sharp suit and sharper eyes. Assistant U.S. Attorney Patricia Chen, no relation to your forensic accountant before you ask. 2 Chens taking down my parents, Madison muttered. They'd hate the irony. I've been building a RICO case, Patricia continued. Your parents didn't just commit fraud. They ran an ongoing criminal enterprise. The elder abuse through their companionship service, the identity theft of their children, the money laundering through real estate, the offshore accounts. This is organized crime. RICO, James asked. Isn't that for the mob? It's for any ongoing criminal organization. Your parents qualify. Detective Williams has done excellent work documenting the credit fraud. Your forensic accountant, Marcus Chen, has traced the money laundering. Now we need to connect all the pieces. She pulled out a folder stamped with FBI seals. We executed search warrants this morning. Your childhood home, the 3 rental properties, their bank deposit boxes. We found interesting things. Such as, I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Ledgers. Your mother apparently kept detailed records of every theft labeled with code names. Your golden goose, Betty. James is Seattle Sucker. Madison is Princess Payout. Charming, Madison said flatly. They also had files on their elderly victims, research on their assets, family situations, vulnerabilities. This was premeditated, organized, and extensive. Detective Williams added, We've frozen all their accounts. Personal business and thanks to international cooperation, the Cayman accounts too. They can't access any funds while the investigation proceeds. Good, I said, surprised by my own viciousness. Let them feel what it's like to have no money. There's something else, Patricia said carefully. We found evidence they were planning to flee. Plane tickets to Costa Rica for next month. One way. They were going to run with whatever they could liquidate. The betrayal hit fresh. They'd been planning to abandon us entirely, leaving us with debt-destroyed credit and no answers. But the partition filing accelerated their timeline, Patricia continued. Your legal action forced them to lawyer up instead of running. You trapped them without knowing it. My phone buzzed again, multiple texts from unknown numbers. Betty, please call us. Dad's in the hospital. You're killing your father. Family forgives family. I showed them to Detective Williams. They're using burner phones now, claiming medical emergencies. Document everything, he advised. It's witness intimidation. Madison's phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and frowned. It's Tyler, my ex. Don't answer, Sarah advised through the speaker. If your parents are desperate enough to reach out to ex-boyfriends, they're escalating dangerously. But Madison had already accepted the call, putting it on speaker. Tyler, Madison, your mom called me. She's hysterical. Says you and your siblings are trying to destroy them over some misunderstanding. She asked me to talk sense into you. Tyler, we haven't spoken in 8 months. Why would you? She offered me $5,000. The room went silent. She what? Madison asked. $5,000 to convince you to drop whatever charges you're filing. She said she'd pay me when this all blows over. I'm calling to warn you. If she's calling me, who else is she contacting? Thank you for telling me, Madison said quietly, and for not taking the money. I may be a jerk, but I'm not that kind of jerk. Be careful, Mads, your mom sounded unhinged. After Madison hung up, Patricia made notes. Witness tampering. Add it to the charges. This is exactly why we need to move fast. They're getting desperate. What happens next? James asked. We arrest them, Patricia said simply. Probably within 48 hours. We have enough evidence and they're clearly flight risks. Once they're in custody, we can prevent further tampering and intimidation. You're going to arrest our parents, I said, the reality sinking in. Your parents are going to be arrested for running a criminal enterprise that stole millions from vulnerable victims, including their own children, Patricia corrected. There's a difference. Detective Williams began packing up his files. The credit restoration will begin immediately. All fraudulent accounts will be closed, all debts erased, and we'll be adding extra security monitoring to your credit profiles. Your financial recovery starts now. What about the others? Madison asked. The elderly victims. We're reaching out to all of them. Most will recover their funds through insurance and restitution. Your parents' assets will be liquidated to pay back victims. As we prepared to leave, Patricia pulled me aside. You started this. Your courage in filing that first fraud report opened up an investigation that will help 17 other families. You should be proud. I don't feel proud, I admitted. I feel empty. That's normal. You're grieving the parents you thought you had while fighting the criminals they actually are. It's complicated, but you're doing the right thing. Outside the building, my siblings and I stood in the parking lot processing what we'd learned. $2.3 million, James said. They stole $2.3 million. From elderly people, Madison added. People who trusted them to help. And from us, I reminded them, we were just their first victims. My phone rang. Sarah. I just got off the phone with opposing counsel, she said. Your parents' attorney wants to meet. Off the record, tonight. Why, I asked. My guess, they know about the search warrants. They know the walls are closing in. They want to negotiate before the arrests happen. I looked at my siblings. What do you think? No deals, Madison said firmly. They had years to make this right. Agreed, James added. Let justice run its course. Tell Dunham no meeting, I told Sarah. We'll see them in court Thursday, if they're not in federal custody by then. As I drove home, my credit card app notified me of a credit to my account. $47,000. Just like that, electronically restored. It felt anticlimactic after everything. But then I thought about the 17 elderly victims who'd trusted my parents, who'd hired them for companionship and help only to be systematically robbed. We weren't just fighting for ourselves anymore. At home, I found a package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside a photo album I recognized from childhood and a note in my mother's handwriting. Look at these pictures and remember who we really are. Remember the love. Don't let anger destroy our family. Please, Betty. You were always the smart one. Be smart now. Stop this before it's too late. I flipped through the album. Birthday parties, Christmas mornings, family vacations, all of it funded, I now knew, by fraud. Every smile in those photos was built on someone else's pain. I added the album to my evidence box and texted the photo to Patricia Chen. "More witness intimidation," she responded. Thursday's partition hearing suddenly seemed less important than the federal arrests coming within 48 hours. But I'd show up anyway, face them one more time in court. After all, I'd been preparing for this my whole life. Every lesson about standing up for myself, every reminder to document everything, every insistence that I be financially responsible. They'd created their own worst enemy, a daughter who'd learned their lessons too well. And unlike them, I wasn't running. Tuesday morning arrived with an unexpected email from Sarah. "Partition sale approved for inspection. You have the legal right to assess the property today. Bring witnesses and a realtor." My hands trembled as I forwarded it to James and Madison. Within an hour, we'd assembled our inspection team, the three of us, Claire as an additional witness, Marcus Chen, to document any financial evidence we might find, and Jennifer Huang, the best real estate agent in the area. "Your parents won't be there," Sarah assured me over the phone. "Their attorney has been notified. They're required to provide access but not be present." Still, my stomach churned as we drove to my childhood home. The familiar tree-lined street looked different now, sinister with secrets. The two-story colonial where I'd grown up seemed to loom larger, hiding evidence of crimes I was only beginning to understand. Jennifer whistled low as we pulled up. "This is worth more than I expected. They've done significant upgrades." "With our money," Madison muttered. The front door opened with my old key. They'd never changed the locks. Stepping inside felt like entering a crime scene, which I supposed it was. "Oh my God," James breathed. The house had been transformed. What I remembered as dated decor and worn furniture had been replaced with luxury, marble floors, designer furniture, a kitchen that belonged in a magazine. "This renovation is recent," Jennifer noted, examining the fixtures. "Maybe 2 years old. This is a $100,000 kitchen alone." "I was eating ramen," I said numbly, skipping dental appointments while they installed marble countertops. Marcus had already started photographing everything. "Look for documents," he instructed. "Home offices, filing cabinets, anywhere they might keep financial records." We split up. I headed to my father's study, the one room we'd rarely been allowed to enter as children. The door was locked, but Jennifer produced a locksmith she'd brought for such possibilities. Within minutes, we were in. The study was a shrine to their deception. Framed photos of their luxury vacations covered one wall. Cruises, resorts, international trips, all documented like trophies. "Betty," Marcus called urgently, "you need to see this." He'd found a filing cabinet also locked, which the locksmith quickly opened. Inside were folders labeled with our names, but the contents made my blood run cold. My folder contained every financial document of mine they'd ever accessed, pay stubs I'd never shared, bank statements from accounts they shouldn't have known about, investment portfolio summaries I'd kept private. They'd been monitoring my finances far more extensively than just the credit cards. "They knew exactly how much you could afford to lose," Marcus said grimly. "They calculated their theft to keep you functional, but struggling." James's folder revealed similar surveillance, records of his salary negotiations, his mortgage documents, his children's college funds. "How did they even get these?" James demanded. Madison's folder was thinner but more disturbing. Psychological evaluations from her therapy sessions, notes about her fragile emotional state and dependency issues. They'd weaponized her mental health against her. "I'm going to be sick," Madison said, but her voice held more rage than nausea now. In the bottom drawer, we found the mother lode, bank statements for accounts we'd never known existed, investment portfolios worth hundreds of thousands, and a business plan for Richardson Family Enterprises that outlined their entire scheme. "They wrote it down," Claire said, incredulous. "They actually created a business plan for defrauding their children." The plan was detailed, cold, clinical. It discussed us like assets to be managed. Betty, high earner, trusting unlikely to check statements regularly, maximize extraction while maintaining her productivity. James' distance helps prevent discovery. Use guilt about family separation. Madison emotional manipulation most effective. Maintain dependency while accessing trust funds. Trust funds, Madison yelped. What trust funds? Marcus was already digging deeper. He pulled out investment statements for accounts in Madison's name, funded by what appeared to be Grandma's inheritance. They've been collecting dividends on investments made with your inheritance, he explained. The principal is intact, but they've stolen 15 years of growth. Jennifer called from upstairs. You all need to see the master bedroom. We climbed the stairs to find a suite that belonged in a luxury hotel. But Jennifer wasn't focused on the decor. She'd found a wall safe behind a painting. It's open, she said, and full. Inside were stacks of cash jewelry I recognized as Grandma's, that we'd been told was lost, and documents that made everything else pale in comparison. The original will. Grandma's real will, not the one they'd showed us. We'd each been left $200,000, not the pittance we'd received. There were also property deeds for 2 houses Grandma had owned that we'd never known about. They stole houses, James said faintly. Entire houses. Sold them, Marcus corrected, finding the sale documents. 4 years ago. Split the proceeds between their Cayman accounts and the renovation of this place. I picked up Grandma's jewelry with shaking hands, her wedding ring, the pearl necklace Grandpa had given her for their 40th anniversary. Things that should have been passed down, not hidden in a safe like criminal proceeds. Madison found something else, a leather journal in my mother's handwriting. She opened it randomly and read aloud. Betty called today about the missing money, convinced her it was identity theft. She's so trusting. Sometimes I feel guilty, but then I remember we gave her life. She owes us. Stop, I said. I can't hear anymore. But Madison kept flipping pages. There's years of this. Detailed notes about manipulating us, strategies for keeping us divided, plans for gaslighting. It's like a serial killer's journal, but for financial abuse. Jennifer had been quietly assessing the house. Current market value is approximately $800,000. With your 75% ownership, Betty, your share would be $600,000. They can't buy me out, I said, which means the house sells. Good, Madison said viciously. They can live in a cardboard box for all I care. Claire had been documenting everything with her phone. We need to call Patricia Chen. This evidence changes everything, Marcus finished. This proves premeditation going back decades. This isn't just fraud, it's conspiracy. I was about to agree when something caught my eye. A framed photo on their dresser placed prominently like a prize. It was from Madison's Aspen trip, her smiling on the slopes in her designer gear. But what made my blood boil was the handwritten note on the frame, "Thanks, Betty." They were mocking me, I said, showing the others, literally celebrating their theft. James had gone silent, staring at a document he'd found. Betty, look at this. It was a life insurance policy. On me for $2 million, taken out 6 months ago. 6 months ago, I was working overtime constantly, I said slowly, stressed, exhausted, skipping meals. Don't go there, Claire said firmly. Don't even think it. But the implication hung heavy. How far would they have gone? How much was I worth to them, dead versus alive? Marcus photographed the policy. This needs to go to the FBI immediately. This escalates things. Jennifer received a text. My office says there's been activity at the house. Someone's approaching. We looked out the window to see our parents' car pulling up despite the legal notice to stay away. Everyone stay calm, Marcus instructed. We have every right to be here. Document everything. The front door slammed open. What the hell are you doing in our house? Robert roared Linda close behind. Conducting a legal inspection of my property, I said, surprising myself with my calm. As 75% owner, I have that right. Your property, Linda shrieked. This is our home. How dare you? How dare we? Madison stepped forward, holding the journal. How dare you steal our inheritance? How dare you take out life insurance on us? How dare you document your crimes like you're proud of them? Linda's face went white when she saw the journal. That's private. That's evidence, Marcus corrected, of premeditated fraud spanning decades. Robert lunged for the documents in James's hands, but Claire stepped between them, her phone recording. Touch him and it's assault on camera, she warned. Get out, Robert shouted. All of you, this is breaking and entering. Actually, Jennifer said pleasantly, it's a court-approved inspection. You're the ones violating a legal order by being here. I held up Grandma's jewelry. Remember telling us this was lost. Remember crying about how sad you were that her things were gone. For the first time, real fear flickered in their eyes. We can explain, Linda started. To the FBI, I cut her off. They'll be very interested in your explanations. The FBI? Robert's bluster deflated. You wouldn't. We're your parents. No, James said quietly. Parents protect their children. Parents don't steal from them, manipulate them, pit them against each other. Parents don't take out $2 million life insurance policies on their daughters. You don't understand, Linda said desperately. We've had expenses, obligations. We did what we had to do for the family. For which family? Madison demanded. The 17 elderly people you stole from, or just yourselves? That stopped them cold. They exchanged panicked looks. How do you know about that? Robert asked. Credit card company, I said simply. Turns out you've been on their radar for months. We just connected the dots. We should go, Marcus said quietly. We have what we need. As we filed past our parents, Linda grabbed my arm. Betty, please, you were always the reasonable one. We can work this out. We'll pay you back. We'll make it right. I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. The mother I'd loved, trusted, believed in. You had 20 years to make it right. Every day you chose not to. This is your fault, she hissed, mask dropping. If you'd just shared willingly, none of this would have happened. But no, you had to be selfish, had to hoard your money while we struggled. While you struggled in your renovated mansion funded by theft, she released my arm as if burned. You're going to regret this. Both of you. All of you. We're your parents. We have rights. Yes, I agreed. You have the right to remain silent. You might want to practice that. We left them standing in their doorway, the house they'd built on our backs, no longer their sanctuary. Jennifer already had her calculator out. Fast sale, we could close in 30 days, she said. Multiple buyers in this market. You'll have your money before they can blink. As we drove away, I felt something shift. The house I'd grown up in, the parents I'd loved. It was all built on lies. But the truth was finally free documented in boxes of evidence and witnessed by people who actually cared about me. You okay? James asked from the driver's seat. No, I said honestly, but I will be. Madison leaned forward from the back. Did you see their faces when we mentioned the elderly victims? They had no idea we knew. Patricia Chen is going to have a field day with all this, Marcus said, already organizing photos on his tablet. The journal alone is prosecutorial gold. My phone buzzed. Sarah texting, just got word, federal arrest warrants issued. They'll be in custody by tomorrow night. I shared the news with the car. Silence greeted the announcement. Good, Madison finally said. They can explain their business plan to a judge. From jail, James added. As we headed back to sort through our evidence, I thought about the life insurance policy. $2 million if I died. Was that my value to them? Not as a daughter, but as a potential windfall. The thought should have broken me. Instead, it freed me. I finally understood the truth. I'd never been their child. I'd been their mark. But marks can become witnesses. Victims can become victors. And daughters who discover they were only ever seen as golden geese, they can burn down the whole farm. The partition sale would go through. The house would sell. Their elderly victims would be made whole. And my parents would learn that the children they'd raised to be financially savvy had become exactly that. Too savvy to remain their victims any longer. Thursday morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that felt like the universe offering a clean slate. I dressed carefully in my best suit, the one I'd bought for my promotion to senior analyst. It seemed fitting to wear success they'd tried to steal from me. Sarah met us outside the courthouse, her expression grim but satisfied. "Your parents' attorney tried to negotiate all night. I told him to save it for the judge." "Any word on the arrests?" James asked. "Tonight, according to Patricia. They want them to appear in court first thinking they're still free. Makes fleeing harder." Madison arrived looking stronger than I'd ever seen her. Gone was the party girl facade, replaced by steel determination. "I'm ready," she announced. "Whatever happens in there, I'm ready." The courtroom was smaller than expected, but it filled quickly. Our parents sat at the defendant's table with Richard Dunham, their expensive attorney, who looked less confident than his reputation suggested. They dressed conservatively, my mother clutching a tissue she hadn't actually used. "All rise," the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge Catherine Morrison presiding. Judge Morrison looked like she'd seen everything in her 30 years on the bench. She reviewed the files before her with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "This is a petition for partition sale of property located at 42 Maple Street," she began. "Ms. Betty Richardson owns 75% of said property and seeks to force sale. The respondents claim elder abuse and undue influence. Mr. Dunham, present your case." Dunham stood, his theatrical flair immediately apparent. "Your Honor, my clients are devastated. Their own children, whom they raised with love and sacrifice, are attempting to throw them onto the streets. This is a clear case of elder abuse of children, ganging up on vulnerable parents who only ever wanted to help their family." Vulnerable. Judge Morrison's eyebrow raised. "Your clients are 62 and 64, Mr. Dunham, hardly elderly." "Emotionally vulnerable, Your Honor. They've been manipulated by their eldest daughter, who has poisoned her siblings against them. Betty Richardson is a financial analyst who used her expertise to trick her parents into signing documents they didn't understand." I felt my jaw clench, but Sarah placed a calming hand on my arm. "Furthermore," Dunham continued, "the timing is suspicious. Only after my clients helped their youngest daughter through a difficult period did these allegations surface. This is retaliation, pure and simple." He went on for 20 minutes painting my parents as saints who'd sacrificed everything for ungrateful children. Madison was portrayed as recovered from crisis thanks to their support. James as an absent son poisoned by distance. Me as a calculating villain who'd masterminded a conspiracy to steal their home. "Thank you, Mr. Dunham," Judge Morrison said when he finally finished. "Ms. Martinez." Sarah stood, her presence commanding despite being half Dunham's age. "Your Honor, I'll be brief because the evidence speaks for itself. The defendants aren't victims. They're perpetrators of systematic fraud spanning 2 decades. She presented our evidence methodically. The credit card theft, the $47,000 from me alone, the inheritance fraud, the properties hidden in Madison's name, the offshore accounts. But that's just the beginning," Sarah continued. "On Tuesday, my clients legally inspected the property in question. What they found proves premeditation." She submitted the journal, the business plan, the life insurance policies. Judge Morrison's expression darkened with each document. "Your Honor," Sarah said, "the defendants wrote a business plan for defrauding their children. They took out $2 million in life insurance on Betty Richardson 6 months ago. They stole not just money, but entire properties from their deceased mother's estate. This isn't elder abuse. This is the victims finally fighting back." "Objection!" Dunham shouted. "Those documents were obtained illegally." "During a court-approved inspection," Judge Morrison corrected. "Sit down, Mr. Dunham." Sarah wasn't finished. "Your Honor, there's more. The defendants aren't just accused of defrauding their children. They're under federal investigation for stealing approximately $2.3 million from 17 elderly victims through a fake companionship service." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. My parents' faces had gone gray. "The FBI has frozen their accounts," Sarah continued. "Arrest warrants have been issued. The only reason they're here instead of in custody is the timing of this hearing. The partition sale isn't elder abuse, Your Honor. It's the least of their concerns. Judge Morrison turned to my parents. Mr. and Mrs. Richardson, do you have anything to say? My mother stood shakily. Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding. We helped our children when they needed it. Sometimes we borrowed from Betty's emergency card, yes, but we always intended to pay it back. The properties in Madison's name were gifts. The insurance policies were to protect our family. We're not criminals. We're parents who maybe made some mistakes, but... Stop, Judge Morrison commanded. Mrs. Richardson, are you aware that what you just said could be construed as confession to credit card fraud? Dunham pulled Linda down, whispering urgently. I've heard enough, Judge Morrison announced. This court finds no evidence of elder abuse or undue influence. The petition for partition sale is granted. The property will be sold within 90 days with proceeds distributed according to ownership percentages. Your Honor, Dunham started. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, given the evidence of criminal activity presented, I'm issuing a restraining order. The defendants are prohibited from contacting the plaintiffs except through counsel. Any violation will result in immediate incarceration. She turned to us. Ms. Richardson, Mr. Richardson. Ms. Richardson, this court recognizes the difficulty of taking legal action against family. Your courage in seeking justice is commended. This is outrageous, Robert burst out. You can't throw us out of our home. We built that house. We raised our family there. With stolen money, Judge Morrison said coldly, and Ms. Betty Richardson owns 75% of it regardless of who lives there. The sale will proceed. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down with finality. Chaos erupted. My mother wailed dramatically. My father shouted about injustice. Dunham tried to maintain control while gathering papers. Outside, Sarah directed us. Quickly! We made it to the hallway before my parents caught up Dunham, struggling to hold them back. You've destroyed us, Linda screamed. Your own parents. How could we, Madison whirled around. How could you? You stole our inheritance. You monitored our finances. You took out life insurance, hoping Betty would die. We never, that's not, Robert spluttered. It's in your own handwriting, James said coldly. Your business plan for exploiting us. We were never your children. We were your revenue streams. Family forgives, Linda pleaded, mascara running. Family stays together. We are together, I said, gesturing to my siblings. For the first time in years, we're actually together, because we're finally free of your lies. Two men in dark suits approached from behind, FBI agents, their badges visible. Robert Richardson, Linda Richardson. We have warrants for your arrest on charges of wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering, and racketeering. No. Linda grabbed for me, but the agents intervened. Betty, please don't let them do this. I'm your mother. My mother died the day I found out she'd been stealing from me while I skipped meals, I said. You're just a criminal who looks like her. The agents cuffed them as Dunham protested about procedure and rights. My father locked eyes with me as they led him away. You'll regret this, he said quietly. When you're alone with your money, you'll regret choosing it over family. I chose truth over lies, I corrected. Chose my real family over the criminals who raised me. They were gone, led away in custody, as courthouse visitors stared. The Richardson family empire, built on theft and manipulation, had finally fallen. You okay? Sarah asked gently. I will be, I said, meaning it. We all will be. Madison surprised me by laughing. Did you see Mom's face when the FBI showed up? She looked like she'd seen ghosts. She did, James said. The ghosts of everyone she'd robbed. Patricia Chen appeared, having watched from the back. Well done. Their arrest will be processed this afternoon. Given the evidence, and flight risk bail will be substantial, if granted at all. What happens to the house? Madison asked. Jennifer's already got 3 interested buyers, I said. Cash offers. We could close within a month. And the money? After the sale, my 75% will be about $600,000, I calculated. I'm thinking of splitting it 3 ways. None of us should profit from their crimes, but we should all recover from them. Betty, no, James protested. That's yours legally. Legally, yes. Ethically, we were all victims. We should all heal together. Madison was crying again, but these were different tears. You'd do that after how I treated you. You were manipulated. We all were. The money isn't important. This is. I gestured between us. Having my brother and sister back, being free of their poison, that's worth everything. Sarah smiled approvingly. The FBI will likely seize their other assets for victim restitution. The elderly victims will be made whole. Your inheritance from your grandmother might be recovered. This is just the beginning of making things right. As we left the courthouse, I felt lighter than I had in years. The house would sell. The criminals who'd happened to be my parents would face justice. The elderly victims would get restitution. And 3 siblings who'd been pitted against each other had found their way back. Lunch, Madison suggested. My treat, with my own actual money. I know just the place, James said. Remember that diner Mom and Dad said was beneath us? Perfect, I laughed. Absolutely perfect. As we walked away from the courthouse, away from the lies and manipulation toward an uncertain but honest future, I thought about my father's parting words. He was wrong. I wouldn't be alone with my money. I'd be free with my family, my real family, the one we'd build ourselves on, trust not theft. The partition sale was just paperwork. The real victory was walking beside me, my brother and sister and I, finally on the same side. Team Richardson, version 2.0, built on truth, powered by justice, and funded by our own damn money. It was about time. The news of our parents' arrest spread through the extended family like wildfire. Within hours of their booking, my phone was buzzing nonstop with calls from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. I let them all go to voicemail, initially needing time to process everything that had happened. Madison, James, and I had agreed to meet at my apartment that evening to strategize our response to what we knew would be coming the full force of family judgment. Aunt Carol called me 6 times. Madison announced, walking in with a bottle of wine, left messages about how we're destroying the family name. Uncle Pete sent me a Facebook novel, James added, pulling up his phone. Apparently, we're ungrateful monsters who've forgotten everything Mom and Dad did for us. I poured wine for everyone, noting how comfortable we'd become in each other's presence over just a few days. Crisis had bonded us in ways years of manipulation had prevented. Before we deal with the family circus, I said, there's something you both need to see. I pulled out a folder Marcus had prepared. The forensic accounting is complete. This shows exactly where our money went over the years. The detailed spreadsheet made Madison gasp. They spent $30,000 on a boat. I didn't even know they had a boat. Docked at the marina downtown. James confirmed, reading further. Registered in Dad's business partner's name to hide the asset. They took clients out on it. Our money funded their entire fake business entertainment. Look at this. I pointed to another line. The country club membership. $25,000 initiation fee, $3,000 monthly dues. All paid with our money while telling us they were struggling. Madison found her section of the report. They were collecting rent on my property for 5 years, $4,800 a month. That's $288,000. I finished. Plus the property appreciation. You're technically a millionaire, Madison. You just didn't know it. She stared at the numbers. While I was sleeping on a futon in their garage, feeling like a failure who couldn't afford her own place. My phone rang. Aunt Carol. I looked at my siblings, then put it on speaker. Hello, Aunt Carol. Betty. Finally. What is this insanity I'm hearing about you having your parents arrested? This has to be some terrible mistake. It's not a mistake, I said evenly. They stole over $300,000 from us and $2 million from elderly clients. The FBI has extensive evidence. That's impossible, Carol shrieked. Linda would never. She's my sister. I know her. Did you know about their properties? Madison interjected. The ones they bought with our stolen inheritance from Grandma. Silence. Then quieter. What inheritance? James leaned forward. Grandma left each grandchild $200,000. We got $1,000. Where did you think the rest went? Linda said the estate was smaller than expected. Debts, funeral costs. Grandma had no debts, I said. Her house was paid off. She lived frugally specifically to leave us something. Mom and Dad stole it all. You're lying, Carol said, but uncertainty crept into her voice. You have to be. Linda wouldn't steal from her own mother's estate. We have the will, Madison said, the real one. Hidden in their safe along with Grandma's jewelry they claimed was lost. A long pause. Send me everything, Carol finally said. Every document, every piece of evidence. If this is true, we'll email it tonight, I promised. After she hung up, James shook his head. That went better than expected. The doorbell rang. I checked the camera to see my neighbor holding a flower arrangement. Suspicious, I opened the door cautiously. These just arrived for you, she said, eyeing the elaborate bouquet. The card read, For our beloved daughter, we forgive you for this temporary confusion. Love always, Mom and Dad. They forgive us. Madison laughed bitterly. From jail, they forgive us. I threw the flowers in the trash card and all. Classic manipulation. Make us feel guilty while positioning themselves as the magnanimous victims. My phone dinged, an email from Cousin Rachel Dad's side of the family. The subject line, Please read Uncle Rob and Aunt Linda. I opened it to find a lengthy defense of our parents, complete with childhood photos of family gatherings. The message ended with, Whatever financial misunderstandings occurred sending them to prison is extreme. Family handles things internally. Financial misunderstandings. James read over my shoulder. Is that what we're calling fraud now? Madison had been quiet, scrolling through her phone. Oh my God, she suddenly said. Look at Mom's Facebook. Before being arrested, Linda had posted a dramatic status, heartbroken by our children's betrayal. Despite everything we sacrifice for them, they've chosen money over family. Please pray for reconciliation and their return to sanity. The comments were a mix of shock support for our parents and condemnation of us. Family friends who'd known us since childhood were calling us greedy, ungrateful, mentally unstable. Should we respond? Madison asked. With evidence, I decided. Time to control the narrative. I created a shared Google Drive and began uploading everything. The forensic accounting report, the journal entries, the business plan for defrauding us, the real will. The FBI investigation summary Patricia had authorized us to share. Then I crafted a family email. To our extended family, we understand many of you are shocked by recent events. We've been equally shocked to discover the extent of our parents' criminal activities. Attached, you'll find comprehensive evidence of systematic theft of over $300,000 from their children, theft of our grandmother's estate totaling $600,000, fraud against 17 elderly clients totaling $2.3 million, identity theft, tax fraud, and money laundering, detailed plans to continue exploiting us, including life insurance policies taken without our knowledge. We didn't choose this path lightly. We attempted to handle things privately, but they responded with escalation and attempted flight to Costa Rica. Criminal charges were necessary to protect their victims and prevent further harm. We remain a family. James Madison and I are united in our pursuit of justice and healing. We hope those who truly care about us will support our difficult but necessary decision. Betty, James, and Madison Richardson. Send it, Madison said firmly. Let them see what really happened. Within minutes, responses poured in. Aunt Carol was first. Dear God, I had no idea. Linda always had money for shopping trips and cruises. She said Rob's pension covered everything. I'm so sorry. Uncle Pete's tone changed completely. The business plan. They wrote about exploiting you like you were stocks to trade. This is monstrous. Whatever you need, we support you. But not everyone was convinced. Dad's brother Thomas called James directly, and we could hear him shouting through the phone about family loyalty and not airing dirty laundry. Then something unexpected happened. Rachel, who'd sent the defensive email, wrote again. I'm struggling to process this. But something happened years ago. Uncle Rob asked to borrow money for a medical emergency. He paid it back, but later I saw him at the casino. When I confronted him, he said I was mistaken. Now I wonder what else I was mistaken about. They stole from other family members too, Madison said, incredulous. My laptop dinged with a video message from Patricia Chen. We gathered around to watch. Thought you should know, she said. Your parents were denied bail. The judge deemed them extreme flight risks given the Costa Rica tickets and offshore accounts. They'll remain in custody until trial. Also, we've had 3 more elderly victims come forward since the arrest. The investigation is expanding. 20 victims total, James calculated. How did they keep it all straight? They didn't, I said, remembering the messy ledgers. That's how they got caught. They got greedy and sloppy. Madison's phone rang. It's Grandma's friend Eleanor. Why would she be calling me? She answered cautiously. Hello. We could hear Eleanor's aged voice. Madison, dear, I saw the news. I need to tell you something. Your grandmother suspected. Before she passed, she told me she worried about your parents' spending. She changed her will to protect you. Children put safeguards in place. But somehow, they got around them, Madison said softly. They stole it anyway. I'm so sorry, dear. Ethel would be heartbroken, but also proud that you're standing up to them. She always said Betty had her backbone, James her integrity, and you, Madison, her fighting spirit. She'd want you to know that. After Eleanor hung up, Madison was crying. Grandma knew she tried to protect us. And now we're protecting others, I said, including her legacy. The evening continued with a flood of revelations. Cousins shared stories of loans never repaid. Aunts recalled expensive gifts my parents gave while claiming poverty. Family friends mentioned odd requests for financial information. They were grifting everyone, James concluded. We were just their primary marks because we trusted them most. My phone rang with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Betty. This is Margaret Williston. I hired your parents' companionship service for my mother. My heart sank. Mrs. Williston, I'm so sorry for what they did. Actually, I'm calling to thank you. My mother passed last year, but before she did, she mentioned missing money. I thought it was dementia. Your courage in coming forward made me check. They stole $40,000 from her. Because of you, she'll get justice even after death. After I hung up, the weight of it all hit me. 20 elderly victims, family members, their own children. The scope was staggering. You know what the worst part is? Madison said quietly. I still love them. Despite everything, part of me still loves the parents I thought they were. That's not the worst part, James corrected gently. That's the best part. It means they didn't break the goodness in you. We spent the rest of the evening fielding calls, emails, and messages. The family was splitting into camps, those who believed the evidence and those who refused to accept it. But something beautiful was happening too. Cousins we'd been pitted against were reaching out with apologies and support. Relationships our parents had sabotaged were mending. They spent so much energy keeping us all divided, I observed. Now their crimes are bringing us together. As midnight approached, Madison yawned. I should go. Stay, I offered. Guest room's yours. James, you too. Pull-out couch isn't fancy, but it's perfect, James said. Team Richardson sleepover. We ended up talking until 3 a.m., sharing stories we'd never been able to before. Childhood memories that looked different in light of what we now knew. Times one of us had been vilified to the others. Manipulation we'd been too young to recognize. Remember when they told me you refused to come to my high school graduation? Madison asked me. They told me you didn't want me there, I replied. Said you were embarrassed by your nerdy sister. I cried for weeks thinking you didn't care. I cried thinking I'd embarrassed you. Jesus, James muttered. "Every major event, every milestone. They found a way to make us hurt each other." "Not anymore," I said firmly. "That ends now." As we finally headed to bed, my phone showed one last message from inmate number 78432, my father from jail. "You've destroyed your mother. She won't survive in here. Her blood is on your hands. I hope your money keeps you warm at night." I deleted it without responding and blocked the number. They'd had their chances, thousands of them. Each stolen dollar had been a choice. Each lie had been deliberate. Each manipulation calculated. Now it was our turn to choose, and we chose truth, justice, and each other. The family explosion had been messy, painful, and revealing. But from the ashes, something new was growing. Real relationships, honest connections, a family built on truth rather than lies. It wasn't the family we'd been raised in. It was better. It was real. 2 weeks after their arrest, our parents' attorney Richard Dunham requested a meeting. Patricia Chen advised us it was likely a plea negotiation attempt given the mounting evidence against them. "They're scared," she explained over conference call. "We've traced the offshore accounts, identified 6 more victims, and the IRS has joined the investigation for tax evasion. They're facing decades in prison." Sarah arranged for us to meet at her office neutral ground with security. James Madison and I arrived early, nervous about seeing our parents for the first time since their arrest. "Remember," Sarah coached, "you're not obligated to accept any deal. Listen, but don't commit to anything." Dunham arrived first, his expensive suit, unable to hide his exhaustion. The case was clearly taking its toll on him, too. Then came our parents, escorted by federal marshals in orange jumpsuits and shackles. The transformation was shocking. My mother's perfect hair was gray at the roots, her face drawn without makeup. My father had aged years in weeks, his usual commanding presence replaced by something desperate. "Thank you for coming." Linda started, tears already flowing. "My babies, I've missed you so much." "Don't," Madison said sharply. "Don't you dare play the loving mother now." Dunham cleared his throat. "My clients wish to make a proposal. Full confession and guilty pleas in exchange for reduced sentences, and your agreement not to pursue civil damages beyond the criminal restitution." "Absolutely not," I said immediately. "They stole our inheritance, our identities, our trust. Criminal restitution won't begin to cover the damage they've done." "Betty, please," Robert pleaded. "We're your parents. Yes, we made mistakes." "Mistakes?" James laughed bitterly. "You wrote a business plan for defrauding us. That's not a mistake. That's a career choice." "Let them finish," Sarah advised quietly. Dunham continued, "They're willing to reveal the locations of all hidden assets, including several you haven't discovered. In return, they ask for your recommendation of leniency to the court." "How many assets?" Patricia asked, all business. "Approximately 1.8 million in various forms. Gold, bonds, cryptocurrency, and yes, more real estate." The number stunned us into silence. They'd stolen even more than we'd found. "Where did it all come from?" Madison asked quietly. "How could you steal so much?" Linda looked at her youngest daughter. "It started small, little amounts here and there. Then it became easier. You all had so much, and we had so little." "You had a paid-off house and Dad's pension," I protested. "It wasn't enough," Robert said. "Not for the life we deserved. We worked hard our whole lives. We earned comfort in retirement." "With our money," James stated flatly, "you felt entitled to steal because you deserved luxury." "We were going to pay it back," Linda insisted. "The investments would have grown. You would have gotten everything eventually." "When?" Madison demanded. "When we found your bodies in Costa Rica. When the life insurance policies you took out on us paid out." Dunham intervened. "Let's focus on the present. My clients are offering complete cooperation. Every asset, every victim's information, every detail of their operations. This saves the government years of investigation and guarantees full restitution to all victims." Patricia considered this. "What sentence are you proposing?" 5 years, each minimum security. With good behavior, they'd be out in 3. No, I said firmly. They stole 20 years of our lives through manipulation and financial abuse. 3 years is insulting. Betty's right, James agreed. They've shown no real remorse, just regret at getting caught. Sarah pulled us aside for a private conference. The hidden assets are significant. That money could help all the victims recover faster. But accepting this deal means they'll be out relatively soon. What does Patricia think? Madison asked. The FBI wants those assets. Patricia admitted joining our huddle, but I support whatever decision you make. We have enough to convict without a deal. We returned to the table. I looked at my parents, searching for any sign of genuine remorse. My mother was crying, but I'd seen those strategic tears too many times. My father stared at the table, jaw clenched in anger rather than regret. We need more, I announced. Full cooperation isn't enough. We want public acknowledgement of what you did. No more playing victim. You admit to everything publicly in court. Absolutely not, Robert exploded. You want to humiliate us? You humiliated yourselves, Madison shot back. We want the truth on record. No sealed deals, no hiding behind legal technicalities. You stand up and admit you systematically defrauded your children and elderly victims. And, James added, you sign away all rights to contact us. Ever. No letters from prison, no messages through third parties. We're done being your victims. Linda sobbed harder. You're asking us to give up our children forever. You gave us up the first time you stole from us, I said coldly. This just makes it official. Dunham whispered urgently with them. Arguments erupted between my parents, their unity cracking under pressure. Finally, he turned back to us. 10 years. They'll agree to 10 years public allocution and no contact, but they need guaranteed protective custody. Other inmates, don't look kindly on those who defraud the elderly. 15 years, I countered. Given their ages and the magnitude of their crimes, that's lenient. Betty, Linda wailed, 15 years, I'll be almost 80 when I get out. Margaret Williston's mother was 85 when you stole her life savings, Madison reminded her. She died thinking she was losing her mind because money kept disappearing. That silenced her. Patricia stepped in. 12 years. Full cooperation, public allocution, no contact orders, and they pay for their own protective custody from the hidden assets. Final offer. Dunham conferred with them again. My father's face was purple with rage, but my mother was whispering urgently. Finally defeated, they nodded. We need the victim impact statements included in the sentencing, Sarah added. All 26 victims get to be heard. 26. Linda looked stunned. There weren't. 26 confirmed so far, Patricia confirmed. Your elderly victims, your children, and several family members you borrowed from over the years. The reality of their crimes finally seemed to hit them, or maybe it was just the reality of consequences. Draw up the agreement, Dunham said tiredly. They'll sign. As lawyers handled paperwork, our parents sat in defeated silence. Then my mother looked up at me. The house, she said quietly. Where will we go when we get out? We'll have nothing. That's not our problem, I replied. Maybe you should have thought about that before stealing everything we had. So cold, she whispered. I didn't raise you to be so cold. No, I agreed. You raised me to be financially responsible, to document everything, to know my worth. Turns out those lessons work both ways. My father finally spoke, his voice bitter. You think you've won, you've lost your parents, your family. For what money? We lost our parents years ago, James said quietly. We just didn't know it yet, and we didn't lose family. We found each other. Madison nodded. We're more family now than we ever were under your manipulation. The marshals indicated time was up. As they prepared to leave, Linda made one last plea. I love you, despite everything I love all 3 of you. I believe you, I said, surprising everyone, including myself. You love us the way you love everything else, as possessions, as investments, as things to control and profit from. That's not the love children need from their parents. But it's the only love you taught us, Madison added, which is why we're strong enough to walk away from it. They were led out, my mother sobbing, my father stone-faced. Dunham gathered his files, looking relieved to be done with them. For what it's worth, he said quietly, this is the right choice. They were planning to claim mental incompetence if the deal fell through, blame everything on gambling addiction and diminished capacity. You saved yourselves a circus trial. After he left, the three of us sat in exhausted silence. 12 years, James finally said. They'll be in their late 70s when they get out. If they get out, Patricia noted. Federal time with multiple victims, they'll serve at least 85%, and that's assuming no additional charges from the ongoing investigation. What about the hidden assets? Madison asked. We'll start recovery immediately. The cryptocurrency alone is worth $600,000. The gold and bonds another $400,000. The real estate, well, they apparently own property in 3 other states. 3 other states. I felt numb. How did we miss that? Shell companies layered on shell companies. Your parents weren't just criminals, they were sophisticated criminals, which makes your catching them all the more impressive. Sarah started calculating. Between the house sale, hidden assets, and recovered funds, each elderly victim will be made whole with interest. You 3 will recover your inheritance plus damages. It's not perfect justice, but it's substantial. What do we do now? Madison asked. They're going to prison. We're getting our money back. But what do we do with the rest of our lives knowing our parents were monsters? We live, I said simply. We build real relationships. We help other victims of family fraud. We make sure their legacy isn't the evil they did, but the strength we found in stopping them. The Richardson Foundation, James suggested suddenly. We could start a nonprofit. Help other adult children recognize and escape financial abuse. With our story public after the allocution, Madison added, getting excited, we could actually make a difference, show people they're not alone. I smiled, feeling something like hope for the first time in months. Mom always said I should use my financial skills to help family. Guess I finally found a way to do that. We spent the next hour planning our shared trauma transforming into shared purpose. The Richardson Foundation would offer resources, support groups, legal guidance. We'd turn our pain into prevention for others. Patricia and Sarah exchanged glances, smiling at our enthusiasm. You know, Patricia said the FBI could use consultants who understand family fraud from the inside. If you're interested in helping with other cases. Yes, we said in unison, then laughed at our synchronization. As we prepared to leave, I felt my phone buzz. An unknown number had left a voicemail. Against my better judgment, I listened. It was Eleanor, Grandma's friend. Betty, dear, I wanted you to know. Your grandmother would be so proud. She always said you 3 had iron spines, you just didn't know it yet. She was right. Give my love to your siblings. I shared the message with James and Madison. We stood there, 3 siblings who'd found our way back to each other through the worst betrayal imaginable. You know what? Madison said. They're wrong. We didn't lose our family. We just figured out who our real family was. Each other, James agreed. And everyone who stood by us, I added, who believed the truth over comfortable lies. We left the law office together, walking into a future we'd build ourselves. No manipulation, no lies, no theft. Just truth, justice, and the kind of love that doesn't keep a ledger. The negotiation was over. Our parents had gotten more mercy than they'd shown any of their victims, and we'd gotten something priceless, freedom. From their lies, from their manipulation, from the toxic version of love they'd taught us. Now we could learn what real family meant, and maybe teach others the same lesson. The Richardson children were finally free. 6 months later, the federal courthouse in downtown stood like a monument to justice, delayed but not denied. Media vans lined the street, drawn by the sensational nature of the case parents who'd systematically defrauded their own children and dozens of elderly victims. I adjusted my blazer for the 10th time, nerves making my hands shake. James stood steady beside me while Madison checked her notes one more time. We'd all been asked to give victim impact statements before sentencing. "Ready?" Patricia Chen asked, approaching with a calm confidence that helped settle my anxiety. "As ready as anyone can be to publicly detail their parents' crimes," I replied. The courtroom was packed. 26 victims had come to witness justice. Eleanor sat in the front row representing my grandmother's memory. Margaret Williston was there for her mother. 17 elderly victims, or their representatives, filled the gallery. Then came my parents led in wearing federal custody uniforms. They looked smaller, somehow diminished by months of confinement and the weight of their crimes. My mother's eyes searched for us immediately, but we kept our gazes forward. "All rise," the bailiff called. "The Honorable Judge William Hartford presiding." Judge Hartford was known for his no-nonsense approach to financial crimes. He reviewed the case files with meticulous attention before speaking. "We're here for sentencing in United States versus Robert and Linda Richardson. The defendants have pled guilty to 47 counts, including wire fraud, identity theft, money laundering, racketeering, and elder abuse. I'll now hear victim impact statements." Margaret Williston went first, her voice strong despite her 80 years. "My mother trusted the Richardsons. She hired them for companionship in her final years. Instead of comfort, they gave her confusion and theft. She died thinking her mind was failing because money kept disappearing. They stole not just her savings, but her peace in her final days." One by one, elderly victims shared their stories. Each tale of trust betrayed savings, decimated golden years, tarnished by financial predators who'd smiled while stealing. Then it was our turn. James went first, his tech executive composure serving him well. "Your Honor, I'm James Richardson, eldest child of the defendants. For 5 years, I sent them $500 monthly because they claimed poverty. They said Betty was too selfish to help, so I stepped up. Meanwhile, they were using that money for country club fees while stealing Betty's identity and manipulating Madison's trust. They didn't just steal money. They stole our relationships with each other, turning siblings into strangers through lies." Madison followed, her voice cracking but determined. "I'm Madison Richardson. I lived in my parents' garage, believing I was a failure who couldn't afford independence. They told me Betty resented supporting my education, making me hate my sister for her supposed generosity. In reality, Betty was being robbed while I was being gaslighted. I've spent 6 months in therapy trying to understand how parents could use their daughter's mental health struggles as a tool for manipulation. I'm 25 years old and just learning what truth looks like because they raised me on lies." Finally, my turn. I walked to the podium on unsteady legs, my prepared statement in hand. But when I looked at my parents, the words I'd rehearsed felt insufficient. "Your Honor, I'm Betty Richardson. The forensic analysis shows my parents stole $47,000 directly from my accounts. But that number doesn't capture the full theft. They stole my security. I skipped meals believing I couldn't afford food. They stole my opportunities. I missed career-advancing conferences thinking I was broke. They stole my relationships. I declined my best friend's wedding because travel seemed impossible. They stole my health. I delayed medical care to save money that was already gone." I paused, gathering strength. But worst of all, they stole my trust. Not just in them, but in myself. Every financial decision I made was colored by anxiety they created. Every relationship was tainted by their warnings about others' greed, projection of their own crimes. They raised me to be financially responsible while robbing me blind, creating a special kind of psychological torture that therapy is only beginning to address. The prosecution claims this was sophisticated financial crime. I disagree. It was intimate terrorism. They weaponized parental love, turned natural trust into vulnerability, and transformed family bonds into chains of exploitation. The life insurance policies they took out on me without my knowledge, that was them betting on my death being more valuable than my life. How does a daughter recover from learning her parents saw her as a potential payoff? My voice broke slightly, but I continued. They taught me everything about money except how to protect it from them. Now I use those lessons to help other victims through the Richardson Foundation. Their legacy won't be the pain they caused, but the healing we create despite them. That's my justice, turning their weapons into tools for others' freedom. I returned to my seat, Madison gripping my hand tightly. Our parents sat frozen, perhaps finally understanding the true magnitude of their crimes through their victims' eyes. Judge Hartford called a brief recess, the emotional weight of testimony filling the courtroom. When we reconvened, he addressed the defendants. Mr. and Mrs. Richardson, before I pronounce sentence, do you have anything to say? They'd agreed to full allocution as part of their plea. Robert stood first, reading from a prepared statement in a monotone that suggested his lawyer's heavy editing. I admit to systematically defrauding my children and elderly clients. I created false emergencies to extract money from James. I used Betty's credit without authorization. I manipulated Madison's trust while stealing her inheritance. I targeted vulnerable seniors through our companionship service. These were not mistakes, but calculated crimes. I accept responsibility and apologize to all victims. He sat down without looking at us. Linda stood next, tears streaming. I participated in defrauding our children and clients. I kept detailed records of our thefts, which I called investments, to justify my actions. I used emotional manipulation to prevent discovery, turning our children against each other. I stolen from my own mother's estate and lied about it for years. I am deeply sorry for the pain I've caused. Her sobs echoed in the courtroom, but I'd heard those strategic tears too often to be moved. Judge Hartford nodded, then began his pronouncement. Financial crimes within families are particularly heinous because they exploit the deepest human truths. That children trust their parents, that elderly trust their caregivers. The defendants didn't just steal money, they stole faith in fundamental human relationships. He continued, the pre-sentencing report reveals the defendants' crimes spanned 15 years and involved elaborate schemes to hide assets while pleading poverty to extract more funds. Even now, they've attempted to hide assets from recovery, showing a lack of true remorse. Wait, what? Patricia whispered. Hidden assets beyond what they revealed. Judge Hartford held up a document. The FBI discovered an annuity in the Bahamas worth $300,000 purchased with stolen funds and not disclosed in plea negotiations. This breach of agreement allows me to depart from sentencing guidelines. Dunham jumped up. Your Honor, my clients were unaware. Sit down, counselor. Ignorance of hidden assets worth $300,000 strains credibility. He turned back to my parents. Robert Richardson, I sentence you to 18 years in federal prison. Linda Richardson, same sentence. You'll serve this time consecutively with any state charges, pay full restitution to all victims, and lifetime supervised release if you survive incarceration. 18 years. They'd be in their 80s if they got out. Linda collapsed, wailing. Robert's face turned purple with rage. This is outrageous, he shouted. 18 years for helping our family, for making some financial mistakes. Bailiff, Judge Hartford said calmly, remove the defendants. As they were dragged out, Linda screaming for us, Robert cursing the judge, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sadness, just empty finality. The courtroom erupted in quiet celebration among the victims. Eleanor hugged me tightly. Margaret shook James's hand. The elderly victims thanked us repeatedly for our courage. Patricia approached with a slight smile. The Bahamas account was the nail in the coffin. Their greed exceeded their caution one too many times. 18 years means they'll likely die in prison. Good, Madison said flatly. Their victims didn't get to choose their suffering, neither should they. Outside the courthouse, media swarmed. We'd prepared a statement delivered by James as the steadiest speaker. Today, justice was served for 26 victims of calculated fraud. Our parents chose greed over family manipulation over love. While we grieve the parents we wished we'd had, we celebrate the triumph of truth. The Richardson Foundation will ensure other families recognize and escape similar abuse. Our parents' legacy of theft ends today. Our legacy of healing begins now. Questions flew, but Patricia guided us to waiting cars. The criminal trial was over, but civil suits would recover remaining assets for victims. That evening, we gathered at my apartment, the same room where this journey began, with a credit card statement. The space that had once held evidence boxes now hosted a celebration of survival. "How do you feel?" Claire asked, having flown in to support James. "Free," Madison answered immediately. "Like I can finally breathe without wondering what manipulation is happening." "Validated," James added. "No more gaslighting, no more doubting our own experiences." "Tired," I admitted, "but the good kind. The kind that comes after finishing something hard but necessary." We transferred the Bahamas funds to victim restitution that day. Every elderly victim would recover their losses plus interest. Our inheritance would be restored. The properties would be liquidated for additional restitution. "What about the house?" Madison asked. "Our childhood home." "Sold to a young family," I reported. "They have 3 kids. It'll be filled with real laughter again." We were quiet, processing that image. New children playing where we'd been groomed for exploitation. Fresh paint covering old secrets. "You know what Grandma used to say?" James recalled suddenly. "The truth might hurt, but lies hurt worse because they steal your reality too." "She knew," Madison said certainly. Maybe not the extent, but she knew something was wrong. My phone buzzed. Sarah texting, "Forrester family wants Richardson Foundation help. Parents stole $800K over 20 years. Your story gave them courage to act. Ready to consult." I showed the others. Our first case. The first of many, James predicted. We turned pain into purpose. Mom and Dad would hate that their schemes created something good. "That's the best revenge," Madison laughed, "using their lessons against others like them." We talked late into the night, planning the foundation's future, support groups, legal resources, financial counseling, a hotline for those suspecting family fraud. As my siblings prepared to leave, Madison hugged me tightly. "Hey, Betty, thank you for filing that first report, for not backing down, for saving us all." "We saved each other," I corrected. "That's what real family does." After they left, I stood at my window overlooking the city. Somewhere in federal prison, our parents were learning that consequences existed even for those who thought love meant license to steal. Somewhere else, future victims were living unaware of gathering storms. But now there was hope. The Richardson Foundation would be their lighthouse warning of dangerous shores and guiding them to safety. I pulled out the one photo I'd kept, Grandma and her 3 grandchildren at her last birthday. Her eyes held knowledge we'd been too young to understand then, but her smile was proud, as if she knew we'd eventually find our strength. "We did it, Grandma," I whispered. "We told the truth. We got justice. We're free." The courthouse victory wasn't just about punishment or restitution. It was about transformation. We'd walked in as victims and emerged as victors. Not because we'd won money or revenge, but because we'd reclaimed our truth. The Richardsons who'd raised us were gone, imprisoned by their own greed, and that was the greatest justice of all. The November morning was crisp and clear as Jennifer Huang met us outside our childhood home for the final time. After months of legal procedures, today marked the end-closing day for the partition sale. The young family who'd bought it would take possession by evening filling rooms, haunted by our memories with their own fresh start. "Final walkthrough," Jennifer asked, gently, keys in hand. Madison shook her head. "We said goodbye during the inspection. Today's just paperwork." But I needed one last look. 5 minutes, I requested. James and Madison waited outside while I entered alone. The house stood empty now, our parents' possessions either in storage or liquidated for victim restitution. Sunlight streamed through bare windows, illuminating dust motes that danced in spaces where family photos once hung. I walked through each room not seeking nostalgia but closure. The kitchen where Mom had taught me to bake while scheming to steal my future earnings. The living room where Dad had lectured about financial responsibility while committing fraud. The dining table where we'd shared meals seasoned with lies. In my old bedroom, I found something unexpected. Carved into the closet doorframe were height measurements from childhood. Betty, age 7, in Dad's handwriting. Before the crimes, before the theft, when they were still just parents, not predators. Or had they always been both I'd never know when love became leverage, when parenting became plotting? "Betty," Madison called. "The buyers are here." I touched the measurements one last time, then left without looking back. Some questions didn't need answers. Some wounds just needed time. Outside, the Chen family waited nervously. No relation to our forensic accountant or prosecutor, just cosmic irony at its finest. They had 3 young children who raced around the yard with the fearless joy of kids who'd never learned homes could be built on betrayal. "Thank you for accepting our offer," Mrs. Chen said warmly. "We know this must be difficult." "It's perfect," I assured her. "This house needs laughter again, real laughter." At the title company, stacks of documents awaited. Jennifer guided us through each signature with practiced efficiency. With every page, our childhood home transformed from crime scene to asset, from prison to profit. "Final sale price $820,000, she announced. "After fees and paying off the refinance loan your parents took, Betty receives $487,000 as 75% owner. Your parents' 25% goes to victim restitution." I signed the disbursement papers, officially dividing my portion equally among the 3 of us. $162,000 each, not enough to erase the pain, but enough to build new foundations. "That's not necessary," James protested again. "It's justice," I countered. "We all suffered. We all deserve restoration." Madison had tears in her eyes. "This money, it's more than I've ever had, more than I thought I'd ever have." "It's yours," I said firmly. "Free and clear. No strings, no manipulation, no guilt, just yours." The notary stamped the final documents. Jennifer handed over the proceeds checks with a smile. "Congratulations. You're officially free of that house." Outside, we stood in the parking lot holding checks that represented so much more than money. Freedom, justice, the end of our parents' hold on our lives. "I know what I'm doing with mine," Madison announced. "Finishing my real degree, the one I actually want, not what they told me to study. Art therapy. I want to help kids from toxic families express what they can't say." "Claire and I are setting up college funds for the kids," James said, "but in trusts, they control not us. No financial strings, ever." "And you?" Madison asked me. "Down payment on my own house. One I choose, one purchased honestly." I smiled. "And the rest goes to expanding the Richardson Foundation. We've had 40 families reach out since the trial." My phone rang. Patricia Chen. "Thought you'd want to know," she said. "The Bahamas annuity cleared. Another $300,000 for victim restitution. Every single victim will be made whole with interest." "Every elderly victim, you mean," I corrected. "James Madison and I are still calculating costs." "Fair point. How's today going?" "The house is sold. We're free." "Good, because I have another update. Your parents' commissary account records show interesting activity. They've been trying to hire someone to check on you. The prison intercepted it, but stay vigilant. Even from federal prison, they were trying to manipulate and monitor. Some habits died hard. Others apparently didn't die at all. Thanks for the warning." After hanging up, I shared the news with my siblings. "Unbelievable," James muttered. 18 years in prison and they're still trying to control us." "Not control," Madison said thoughtfully. "Punish. They can't stand that we're free and thriving. It breaks their narrative that we're helpless without them." Jennifer joined us, commission check in hand, but expression sympathetic. "I've sold a lot of houses, but this one, knowing the story, seeing you 3 come together through this, it's special. That house held a lot of pain. Now it can hold joy again. New memories erasing old ones. I agreed. As Jennifer left, we remained in the lot, reluctant to separate despite having what we'd come for. The sale was complete, but something felt unfinished. "Want to drive by one more time?" Madison suggested. "Say goodbye properly." We piled into James's rental car, driving the familiar route one last time. The neighborhood looked different, somehow less ominous, without the weight of secrets. Normal families living normal lives, unaware of the drama that had unfolded behind our perfect suburban facade. The Chen family's moving truck was already there, Mr. Chen directing movers while the children played on the lawn. Our mother's prized rose bushes would bloom for strangers now. Our father's meticulously maintained garage would hold another family's tools. "Look," Madison pointed, "they're putting up a swing set." Where our father had installed security cameras to monitor our coming and going, they were creating a playground. It felt like poetic justice. I hated this house, I admitted. Even before knowing about the crimes, it always felt like a performance space, not a home. "Because it was," James said. "We were props in their show, the successful children proving what good parents they were while they robbed us blind." "Not anymore," Madison said firmly. "Now we're the authors of our own stories." As we drove away, I caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror of Mrs. Chen hanging a welcome sign on the door. Welcome. Something we'd never truly been in that house despite living there for years. My phone buzzed. A text from Eleanor. "Your grandmother would be so proud. You turned pain into purpose, loss into liberation. The money from the house, she'd call it interest on the love she invested in you three." I shared it with my siblings, and we sat in comfortable silence as James drove us back to the city. 3 orphans of living parents, richer not just in money, but in truth. That evening, we met at a restaurant to celebrate. Not the fancy kind our parents would have chosen to impress, but a comfortable place where we could talk freely. Claire had flown in again, and Madison brought her new boyfriend, someone she'd met in therapy, who understood complicated family dynamics. "To freedom," James toasted, raising his glass. "To justice," Madison added. "To family," I concluded, "the kind we choose." We clinked glasses, the sound ringing clear and true. No lies lurking beneath the celebration, no hidden agendas or mental ledgers. Just 3 siblings who'd survived the worst betrayal and emerged stronger. "So what's next?" Claire asked. "The criminal trial's done. The house is sold. The foundation is growing. What do you 3 do now?" "Heal," Madison said simply. "Actually properly heal. I've spent 6 months in therapy just unpacking the gaslighting. There's years more work ahead." "Build," James added. "My relationship with my kids, with you 2, with trust itself. Mom and Dad broke so much more than laws." "Learn," I said. "How to have relationships without transaction logs, how to trust without triple verification, how to love without ledgers." "And the foundation," Claire prompted. "Becomes our legacy," I said. Every family we help escape financial abuse rewrites our parents' story. They wanted to be remembered as successful people who raised successful children. Instead, they'll be remembered as cautionary tales, whose victims became victors. The waiter brought our meals. Nothing fancy, just good food honestly paid for. No theft seasoning the pasta, no fraud financing the wine. Every bite tasted like freedom. "I've been thinking," Madison said between bites, "about forgiveness. Everyone keeps asking if we'll ever forgive them." And James prompted, "I don't think forgiveness is the goal. Peace is. And I can find peace without absolving them. They made choices every single day to hurt us. Thousands of choices over decades. That's not a mistake requiring forgiveness. That's a pattern requiring boundaries." "Permanent boundaries," I agreed, "enforced by federal prison, thankfully." "You know what I realized?" James added. "I spent so much energy hating them, but hate is just another chain connecting us. I'm aiming for indifference. They become strangers who happen to share DNA. Strangers we're protected from by restraining orders," Madison added with dark humor. As we finished dinner, my phone showed an email from a family in Texas. Their elderly mother had been swindled by her son, and they'd found our foundation online. Could we help? Always, I typed back. The Richardson Foundation exists to help families recognize and escape financial abuse. Let's schedule a consultation. Another one, Madison asked, reading over my shoulder. The 41st inquiry this week. Patricia thinks we've only scratched the surface. Family financial abuse is underreported because people feel ashamed. Our visibility is changing that. From victims to advocates, James mused. Mom always said we'd make her proud someday, just not how she imagined. We laughed at the irony. Linda Richardson had dreamed of successful children she could brag about and exploit. Instead, she'd created successful children whose success came from exposing her crimes. As we prepared to part ways, James back to Seattle Madison to her new apartment, me to my life no longer defined by theft, we stood in the restaurant parking lot, reluctant to separate. Same time next month, Madison suggested. Richardson sibling dinner, no drama, just checking in. Wouldn't miss it, James and I said together. We hugged goodbye, real embraces, free of manipulation or agenda. Just love between siblings who'd found their way back to each other through the ruins of parental betrayal. Driving home, I passed through our old neighborhood one last time. The Chen house, I couldn't think of it as ours anymore, glowed with warm light. Children's shadows played against curtains. Normal family life happening in rooms that had hosted so much deception. The sale money sat heavy in my bank account, not stolen this time, but earned through surviving, through speaking truth, through refusing to let criminals who happened to be parents continue their theft unchallenged. Tomorrow I'd put an offer on a small house across town, nothing fancy but mine, purchased with clean money and clear conscience. Tonight I'd sleep peacefully, knowing the house of lies had been sold to people who'd fill it with truth. The Richardsons who'd built that house on a foundation of fraud were in federal prison, and that made all the difference. 3 months after the house sale, I sat in my new home office, a small but sunny room in the modest house I'd bought with clean money. The computer screen showed another email from the federal prison forwarded by Patricia Chen as required by the restraining order. This one was different from the usual manipulative pleas or angry accusations. Betty. My mother had written, I need you to know the truth. I almost deleted it, but something made me continue reading. Dr. Harrison, the prison psychiatrist, has diagnosed me with narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. Your father has the same diagnoses. We're in mandatory therapy, and I'm beginning to understand what we did to you. Not excusing it. Dr. Harrison says that's the first step, stopping the excuses. But I wanted you to know we're finally facing the truth about ourselves. I'm sorry, not the sorry that comes with but attached. Just sorry. Linda. I stared at the screen, emotions churning. After months of denial and manipulation, was this real acknowledgement, or just another manipulation tactic refined by therapy vocabulary? My phone rang. James. Did you get it too? He asked without preamble. The diagnosis email, yeah. What do you think? I think I need to call Dr. Harrison. Patricia had included the psychiatrist's contact information, noting he was authorized to discuss general treatment approaches, though not specific patient details. Dr. Harrison returned my call within an hour. His voice was professional, but warm. Ms. Richardson, I understand you have questions about your parents' treatment. Are they actually capable of change? I asked bluntly. Or is this just sophisticated manipulation? He paused carefully. Without violating confidentiality, I can say that individuals with these diagnoses can develop insight into their behaviors. Whether they can fundamentally change their personality patterns is complex. What matters more might be whether you need them to change for your own healing. I realized as I said it. I need to understand for the foundation. We help other families recognize these patterns. Then I can share that your parents' patterns are textbook. The financial exploitation, the triangulation between children, the grandiose sense of entitlement, all classic presentations. Your family story has actually become a teaching case here, with identifying details removed, of course. After we hung up, I called an emergency sibling meeting. Madison and James appeared on video, both looking troubled. "It doesn't change anything," Madison said firmly after I shared the psychiatrist's insights. "Understanding why they're monsters doesn't make them less monstrous." "But it might help our foundation work," James pointed out. "If we can help families recognize these personality patterns earlier." I pulled up our foundation website where inquiries had surpassed 300. "We need professional guidance. What if we hire a forensic psychologist as a consultant? Someone who can help us understand the intersection of personality disorders and financial abuse." "Yes," Madison agreed immediately. "Education, not just emergency response." That decision led to Dr. Sarah Kim joining our team 2 weeks later. Her first presentation to our support group was revelatory. Financial abuse in families often follows predictable patterns based on the abuser's personality structure, she explained to the 20 attendees. Understanding these patterns isn't about excusing behavior. It's about recognizing red flags and protecting yourself. Margaret Williston, who'd become a regular attendee despite recovering her mother's money, raised her hand. "My mother's caregiver seems so normal, so caring. How did we miss it?" "Because people with these disorders can be incredibly charming when it serves their purposes," Dr. Kim explained. "They study their victims, learn what you need to hear, and mirror it back perfectly, until they have what they want." A young man named David shared next. "My mom has been borrowing from me for years. Always emergencies, always desperate. But she drives a Mercedes and takes vacations. Am I being selfish for wanting to stop?" The group responded with unanimous support, sharing similar stories. The patterns were eerily consistent: charm, crisis, manipulation, theft, gaslighting when questioned. "You're not selfish," I assured David. "You're recognizing exploitation. There's a difference between helping family and enabling theft." After the meeting, Dr. Kim pulled me aside. "Your parents' case files. Would you be comfortable sharing them for training purposes? Obviously anonymized, but the documentation is exceptional. If it helps other families, absolutely." That night, Madison called with her own news. "I got accepted the art therapy program at Northwestern. Full scholarship based on my essay about surviving family trauma." "Madison, that's incredible. I wrote about us." She continued, voice thick with emotion, about how art helped me process what words couldn't. The admissions committee said it was one of the most powerful applications they'd received. "From garage-dwelling failure to Northwestern scholar," I said. "Mom and Dad would hate it." "Which makes it even sweeter," she laughed. James had news too when we conferenced him in. "The foundation's getting national attention. CNN wants to do a feature on financial abuse within families. Are we ready for that level of exposure?" I thought about the 300 families who'd already reached out, the support group spreading to other cities, the victim who'd thanked us for giving her courage to file charges against her son. We're ready. Our parents wanted to be famous for their success. Let them be infamous for their crimes instead. The CNN interview aired 2 weeks later. The reporter, a seasoned financial crimes journalist, didn't pull punches. "Your parents stole millions and are serving 18 years in federal prison. How do you reconcile that with them being the people who raised you?" "We don't," Madison answered. "We accept that the parents who raised us and the criminals who robbed us are the same people. That duality is what made their crimes possible and what makes healing so complicated. The Richardson Foundation has helped recover over $4 million for victims in just 6 months," the reporter continued. "What drives that success?" "Lived experience," James explained. "We know the tricks because they were used on us. We recognize the patterns because we survived them. Every family we help rewrite their story helps us rewrite ours." "Your parents recently sent letters claiming they're in therapy, taking responsibility. Do you believe them?" I took that one. "Their actions over decades speak louder than letters from prison. Whether they're genuinely developing insight or performing for reduced sentences doesn't matter to us anymore. We're focused on helping victims, not rehabilitating perpetrators. The segment ended with contact information for the foundation. Within hours, our website crashed from traffic. Donations poured in. Victims reached out. Publishers called about book deals. "We need staff," I told my siblings at our emergency strategy meeting. "This is beyond what we can handle as volunteers." "I've been thinking," James said. "What if I take a sabbatical from tech, move back here, run operations full-time? Claire supports it. She says I've been happier doing this work than I've been in years." "And I could do art therapy with victims while in school," Madison offered. "Healing through creation. God knows it's helped me." "So we're really doing this?" I asked. "Making the foundation our careers, turning our trauma into purpose." Madison smiled. "Mom always said we'd amount to nothing without their guidance. Let's prove her wrong by amounting to everything because of their crimes." Over the following weeks, the Richardson Foundation transformed from crisis response to comprehensive support. We hired Dr. Kim full-time, added a financial counselor who'd survived similar abuse, created educational materials for banks to recognize elder financial abuse, developed workshops for adult children setting financial boundaries. The letters from prison continued, forwarded dutifully by Patricia, sometimes angry, accusing us of abandoning family, sometimes pleading health scares, real or imagined, sometimes seemingly genuine accountability followed immediately by manipulation. We read them only to understand patterns for our work. Our parents had become case studies, nothing more. Then came the letter that changed things. "Betty James Madison," our father wrote, "The FBI found something during asset recovery, a safe deposit box we'd forgotten about. Inside were letters from your grandmother to you three meant to be given on your 30th birthdays. Also her real jewelry, not what we showed you before. The FBI will release these personal items to you. I know you hate us, and you should, but please don't reject her love because of our crimes. She saw through us long before you did. Read her letters. Robert." The FBI confirmed the box's existence. 2 weeks later, we sat in Patricia's office as she produced 3 yellowed envelopes and a jewelry box. "Your grandmother wrote these 15 years ago," Patricia explained. "The jewelry is all there. Engagement ring, anniversary, pearls, her mother's brooch. Worth about $50,000, but I suspect the sentimental value is higher." With shaking hands, I opened my envelope. "My dearest Betty," Grandma's handwriting began. "If you're reading this, I'm gone and you're 30, or circumstances have delivered this early. I pray your parents honored my wishes, but I fear they won't. You have my backbone, dear one. Use it. Stand tall against anyone who would diminish you, even if they share your blood. The money I left is just paper. The strength I leave you is steel. Trust yourself. Question everyone else. And know that love doesn't keep score. If someone's counting what you owe them, they're not loving you. All my love, Grandma." Through tears, I looked at my siblings. Madison was sobbing over her letter. James held his like a lifeline. "She knew," Madison whispered. "She tried to warn us." "And protect us," James added, "even from beyond." The jewelry box held treasures our parents had hidden while claiming them lost. I lifted out the pearl necklace, remembering Grandma wearing it to church every Sunday. "These should be displayed at the foundation," Madison suggested. "Reminders that love doesn't steal, it protects." Her final gift, I agreed. Truth even they couldn't destroy? We created a memorial wall at the foundation office displaying Grandma's photo and a plaque in memory of Ethel Richardson, who saw the truth and tried to protect her grandchildren. Her legacy lives in every family we help find freedom. The reckoning continued beyond our family. The elderly victims formed their own support group. Several faced similar revelations. The charming helpers who'd robbed them had personality disorders that made empathy impossible. Understanding didn't erase violation, but it helped explain how they'd been fooled. 6 months into our parents' sentences, we received notice of a prison disciplinary hearing. They'd been caught trying to run a commissary lending scheme, charging fellow inmates interest on small loans. Even in prison, they can't stop exploiting people, James marveled. It's actually impressive in its consistency. Leopards and spots, Madison said. At least they're only harming other criminals now. But the real reckoning came when David, the young man from our first support group, called with an update. He'd set boundaries with his mother, stopped the financial bleeding, and started therapy. She raged at first, he reported. Said I'd regret abandoning family. But you know what? I don't regret it. I regret waiting so long. Thank you for showing me it was okay to protect myself. Stories like David's multiplied. Families recognizing abuse, victims finding strength, patterns breaking before another generation suffered. One evening, as I prepared for another support group, Eleanor called. I visited their graves today, she said, meaning my grandparents. Told them what you three have accomplished, how you turned poison into medicine for others. Ethel would be so proud, dear. So would Harold. You've given their deaths meaning by helping others live free. That night's support group was our largest yet. 30 people in various stages of recognition and recovery. As I opened the meeting, I looked at the faces gathered. Each represented a family touched by financial abuse, each a story of trust, betrayed, and hopefully rebuilt. Welcome to the Richardson Foundation Support Group, I began. We're here because family isn't always safe, love isn't always pure, and sometimes the people who should protect us become predators instead. But we're also here because victims can become victors, wounds can become wisdom, and the families we build can be stronger than the ones we're born into. My name is Betty, and my parents stole $47,000 from me while telling me they loved me. But that's not where my story ends. It's where my real story begins. One by one, others shared. The reckoning continued, not just for our parents serving their sentences, but for every family finding courage to speak truth about financial abuse. The Foundation's mission statement, written in consultation with all 3 siblings, hung on the wall, transforming family financial abuse from shameful secret to recognized crime. Because love doesn't steal, and theft isn't love no matter what DNA says. Our parents had taught us everything about money except how to protect it from them. Now we taught others what they'd refused to, that boundaries weren't betrayal, that questioning wasn't disrespect, and that family who truly loved you wanted you to thrive, not just survive as their financial host. The reckoning was ongoing. Every family helped, every pattern recognized, every victim empowered, rewrote our parents' legacy. They'd wanted to be remembered as successful parents who raised successful children. Instead, they'd be remembered as cautionary tales whose greatest accomplishment was creating the children strong enough to stop them. And we were okay with that. More than okay. We were free. 1 year later, I stood before a packed auditorium at the National Conference on Financial Crimes. The PowerPoint behind me showed a simple statistic. The Richardson Foundation 1247 families helped 18.6 million recovered, zero regrets. Today marks exactly 1 year since my siblings and I discovered our parents had stolen our identities, inheritance, and trust. I began. 1 year since a $22,000 credit card charge for my sister's Aspen trip revealed decades of systematic fraud. 1 year since we chose truth over the comfort of lies. In the front row sat James and Madison, now full-time foundation directors. Beside them, Dr. Kim and our growing team of counselors, lawyers, and advocates. Throughout the audience were prosecutors, social workers, and family members seeking answers. People often ask if we regret sending our parents to federal prison. The answer is complex but clear. We regret that they chose crime over love. We regret the years lost to their manipulation. But we don't regret choosing justice. Here's why. I clicked to the next slide photos from our support groups across 12 cities. Every week we meet families devastated by financial abuse from those they trusted most. The patterns are heartbreakingly consistent. The charming parent who borrows just this once. The crisis that demands immediate help. the guilt when questions arise, the gaslighting when boundaries are suggested, the escalation when victims resist. But here's what our parents never understood: their greatest theft wasn't money. It was truth. They stole our reality, making us question our own perceptions. They stole our relationships, turning siblings against each other. They stole our security, creating anxiety that outlasts any financial recovery. I paused, making eye contact with familiar faces in the audience. Margaret Williston, now a foundation board member. Eleanor wearing grandma's pearls we'd gifted her. David free from his mother's exploitation and mentoring other victims. The Richardson Foundation exists because we learned a hard truth. Family financial abuse thrives in silence and shame. Victims blame themselves. How could I not see it? Why didn't I stop it sooner? What kind of person prosecutes their own parents? I'll tell you what kind: the kind who recognizes that love doesn't steal and theft isn't love. The kind who understands that DNA doesn't grant license for exploitation. The kind who knows that protecting future victims matters more than protecting family reputation. Madison took the stage next to her art therapy program, having evolved into a cornerstone of our healing approach. I spent 25 years believing I was a failure, she shared, living in my parents' garage, financially dependent, emotionally stunted. Through art therapy, I discovered the truth: I wasn't failing. I was being failed, systematically, deliberately, by the people who should have wanted my success most. She showed slides of artwork from our programs, abstract representations of betrayal transforming into images of strength. Financial abuse leaves invisible scars. Traditional therapy helps, but sometimes words aren't enough. Through creative expression, victims process trauma that logical thought can't touch. They paint their anger, sculpt their boundaries, draw their freedom. Our parents saw us as ATMs with pulses. Through art, victims reclaim their humanity. They're not just recovering money, they're recovering themselves. James followed, presenting the operational success that had attracted national attention. In 1 year, we've grown from 3 angry siblings to 43 staff members across 15 locations. We've partnered with major banks to identify elder financial abuse. We've trained over 3,000 social workers to recognize warning signs. We've created the first national database of family financial fraud patterns. His slides showed our screening tools now used by financial institutions nationwide. But our greatest achievement isn't operational, it's cultural. We've begun changing the conversation around family financial abuse. It's not a private family matter, it's a crime. It's not ungrateful children overreacting. It's victims seeking justice. It's not about choosing money over family, it's about choosing truth over exploitation. Dr. Kim presented the psychological framework we developed, identifying 5 stages of recognition and recovery. Confusion when patterns don't match. Denial because family couldn't possibly. Anger at the betrayal discovered. Grief for the family imagined. And finally, acceptance and action. Understanding these stages helps victims navigate their journey without getting stuck in self-blame. Then came the surprise. Patricia Chen, now a federal judge, had flown in for a special announcement. The Richardson Foundation's work has led to federal legislation. I'm proud to introduce the Family Financial Protection Act. This bill would create specific penalties for family financial abuse mandate, reporting by financial institutions, and fund recovery programs nationally. The audience erupted in applause. Madison grabbed my hand, tears streaming. James stood stoically, but I saw his shoulders shaking with emotion. Your parents' crimes, Judge Chen continued, have sparked the largest reform in family financial crime prevention in decades. Their legacy isn't what they stole. It's what you've built from the ashes of their greed. During the break, attendees shared their stories. A woman whose brother drained their parents' retirement. A man whose daughter stole his identity for luxury purchases. A couple discovering their son had been siphoning funds while claiming unemployment. Each story reinforced why our work mattered. Family financial abuse wasn't rare. It was underreported, underrecognized, and devastating. The afternoon panel featured recovered victims sharing their journeys. Margaret Williston spoke eloquently about her mother's final years, tainted by theft but vindicated by justice. David detailed setting boundaries with his exploitative mother and the freedom that followed. Others shared through tears and triumph. As the conference concluded, I returned to the podium for closing remarks. A year ago, I thought my story ended with discovery of my parents' crimes. I was wrong. That was just the beginning. The real story is what we choose to do with our pain. Do we let it define us or refine us? Do we hide in shame or shine light for others? Our parents taught us 3 crucial lessons, though not the ones they intended. First, trust but verify. Love doesn't mean blind faith. Second, boundaries aren't betrayal. Protecting yourself isn't selfish. Third, chosen family. The bonds we build through mutual respect can heal wounds blood family created. I looked at my siblings, my chosen family expanded beyond biology. To those still trapped in family financial abuse, you're not alone. Your confusion is valid. Your anger is justified. Your desire for freedom is not ungrateful. It's human. Resources exist. Support awaits. The path out is real. To those who say we should have handled this, privately kept family business within family, our parents' 26 victims deserved public justice. Future victims deserve public warning. And we deserve to reclaim our truth publicly after years of private lies. Our foundation's motto is simple: love doesn't steal. If someone claims to love you while taking from you, question the love, not your worth. You deserve relationships that build, not bankrupt. Family that supports, not siphons. Love that gives, not just takes. As applause thundered through the auditorium, I thought about our parents in federal prison. Recent letters suggested genuine introspection mixed with familiar manipulation. They'd never fully change. Personality disorders that deep rarely transformed. But we had changed. From victims to advocates. From isolated to united. From ashamed to empowered. After the conference, the 3 of us stood outside the venue processing the day's wait. "Did you ever imagine this when you found that credit card bill?" Madison asked. I imagined confrontation, maybe recovery of some money. Not this. I gestured at the banner reading, "National Conference on Financial Crimes featuring the Richardson Foundation." "Our parents wanted a legacy," James observed. "They got one, just not what they planned." My phone buzzed with a text from Eleanor. "Watch the live stream. Ethel is dancing in heaven. You 3 have honored her memory beautifully." That evening, we held our regular sibling dinner at the same unfancy restaurant where we'd celebrated the house sale. No cameras, no pressure, just 3 people who'd survived the same war comparing battle scars and building plans. "What's next?" Madison asked over dessert. "Federal legislation, national recognition, international inquiries. Where do we go from here?" "Forward," James said simply. "One family at a time, one truth at a time. Until family financial abuse is as recognized as any other form of abuse," I added. "Until victims know they're not crazy, ungrateful, or alone." We raised our glasses in our traditional toast to freedom, to justice, to family we choose. Later, alone in my study, I opened my laptop to write our weekly foundation newsletter. The cursor blinked, waiting for wisdom I wasn't sure I possessed. Then I remembered why we started this. Not for recognition or revenge, but for the email that arrived daily. The "thank you for giving me permission to protect myself" messages. The "I thought I was alone until I found your story" revelations. The "my children won't suffer what I did because of your work" promises. I began typing. Dear Richardson Foundation family, today marks 1 year since our journey began. A year of pain transformed into purpose, of isolation becoming community, of victims discovering their voices. To those who've found freedom, celebrate your courage. To those still trapped, freedom awaits. To those who judge our choices, we pray you never face what we did. Our parents' crime was theft. Our response is gift. The gift of truth, resources, and hope to families navigating financial abuse. Every dollar recovered, every pattern recognized, every boundary set proves the same eternal truth: love doesn't steal. Thank you for joining us in rewriting this narrative. Together, we're ensuring that family financial abuse moves from shameful secret to recognized crime, that victims find validation, not isolation, that love means support, not exploitation. The lesson of our story isn't about the money stolen or recovered. It's about the power of truth to transform trauma into triumph, the strength found in surviving betrayal, the family built through shared healing rather than shared blood. 1 year later, we're not defined by what was taken from us, but by what we've built from the wreckage. Not by the parents who betrayed us, but by the community that embraced us. Not by the lies we believed, but by the truth we now share. Love doesn't steal. Theft isn't love. And sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable those who would harm you, even if they gave you life. With gratitude and hope, Betty Richardson co-founded the Richardson Foundation. As I hit send delivering the newsletter to thousands of subscribers, I realized the final irony. Our parents had spent decades trying to profit from their children. In the end, their children profited from their crimes, not financially, but purposefully. We'd built something beautiful from their ugliness, something honest from their lies, something healing from their harm. The credit card charge that started everything, $22,000 for Madison's Aspen trip, had seemed catastrophic. Now it felt like the best investment our parents ever made, not in Madison's vacation, but in our freedom. They'd charged luxury to my card without permission. We'd charged forward with our lives without their poison. And that made all the difference. Standing up to those who harm you isn't ungrateful, it's necessary. Building boundaries isn't betrayal, it's wisdom. Choosing truth over comfortable lies isn't cruel, it's love. Real love for yourself and for every victim who sees your courage and finds their own. The Richardson Foundation stands as testament to a simple truth: we can't choose our birth family, but we can choose our response to their choices. We can choose healing over hatred, purpose over pain, truth over lies. And in that choosing, we find freedom. To everyone reading this, what boundaries do you need to set with family who see you as a resource rather than a person? What truths have you been afraid to speak? What freedom awaits on the other side of difficult conversations? Comment below with your story. Like if this resonated. Subscribe to join our community of survivors and thrivers. Share to help someone trapped in family financial abuse see they're not alone. Thank you for being part of our journey from victims to victors. Your support transforms our pain into purpose daily.